Public opinion.
Stop this foolish about this GLP and PNP business. We are Jamaican.
Different people.
It's not a matter of a JLP or a PNP. I think it's more like where it is that you think you're comfortable, what support you can afford to make the country better.
Different views.
Most entertainers, they're not amenable to management, so the only thing that can ultimately structure them is the court and the prison.
Public opinion. The voice of the people at 6:25 p.m. weekdays during Nationwide at 5. Tune into Nationwide at 6:25.
Ready to tackle that building project? Start right. Start here at H&L Rapid True Value for building supplies. The time by H&L Rapid True Value is
Nationwide time, 5 o'clock.
From the Nationwide News Network, comprehensive, incisive, tough. This is Nationwide at 5.
Good afternoon, I'm Nora Gay Banton.
And I'm Mahiri Stewart.
In Nationwide News at this hour, Prime Minister Andrew Holness issues stern warning to Jamaicans returning to the island from the U.S. with criminal intentions.
This is not the Jamaica that you left 10 or 20 years ago. It is not the JCF that you left 10 or 20 years ago.
Senator Abka Fitzhenley says Dr. Dayton Campbell should resign from the ECJ over alleged organized criminality within the PNP Secretariat and the Andrew Swaby-led KSAMC.
Dr. Dayton Campbell resign as a commissioner, given the magnitude of this corruption scandal in which she's deeply mired.
But Opposition Senator Donna Scott Motley says the JLP cannot pretend its hands are clean on the matter of political corruption.
Deputy Mayor Delroy Williams calls for KSAMC to be audited over allegations of cash disbursements for partisan purposes.
Clash between JLP and PNP councillors brings Association of Local Government Authorities of Jamaica meeting to abrupt halt.
In news from the rest of the world, Police Commissioner of Trinidad and Tobago arrested in gun probe.
The White House says Canada, Mexico and China are to face tariffs on Saturday.
In headline sports, Jamaica Scorpions set Windward Islands Volcano's massive victory target in regional 4-day encounter.
And later in our broadcast, in our cover story at 5:35, the annual general meeting of the Association of Local Government Authorities of Jamaica descended into chaos and was dismissed after councillor of the Rocky Point Division, Winston Mirage, was injured in a skirmish. We'll be joined by Mayor of Montego Bay, Richard Vernon, and a representative from the PNP.
From 6 to 8, join us for a live broadcast of the Caribbean Neurological Association's 23rd Annual Neurosciences Symposium and Workshop. You'll hear from Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton, Minister of Finance and Public Service Favour Williams, Consultant Neurosurgeon at the UHWI Dr. Carl Bruce, and others on financing healthcare.
And at 8, it's the A-Team with Dennis Brooks. All these and more as we take you home on air on your mobile Nationwide 90 FM, Nationwide Radio JM.com, and on the Nationwide app available on the Google Play and the App Store. This Friday afternoon, it's Friday, January 31, 2025.
News at 5 is brought to you by Fostrich Company Limited, fostering rich customer service.
If it's news, it's got to be Nationwide 90 FM.
Now the details. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has issued a stern warning to Jamaicans who return to the island from the United States with criminal intentions as the Trump administration intensifies their crackdown on undocumented immigrants. He was speaking at a handing over ceremony at Rampton in St. James on Friday.
There are many Jamaicans now who are feeling uncertain in the United States and who are considering returning on their own to avoid the indignity of being deported. And we welcome you back to Jamaica. We want your talent, we want your resources. There are many opportunities in Jamaica. But let me be clear that for those Jamaicans who intend to come back with crime and violence to undermine what we have been building here, let me be clear to you that this is not the Jamaica that you left 10 or 20 years ago. It is not the JCF that you left 10 or 20 years ago. You will either meet a judge or your maker.
More than 5,000 undocumented Jamaicans who are not in detention have been issued with final orders for removal from the U.S. The figure is contained in a list bearing the header U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement and the Department of Homeland Security logo. According to the list, 5,120 Jamaicans are set to be deported. The document also lists Jamaica as one of 11 countries at risk of non-compliance. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says those Jamaicans who choose to return home to a life of crime will not be tolerated.
If you come back to Jamaica and violate our laws and create havoc, I know that there are many who will be returning to Jamaica, coming back to lovely communities like these, rural areas like these, and they may attempt to set up gangs, get involved in scamming, and undermine the values of the communities that they return to. We will not tolerate that. We want all our Jamaicans to always feel that they have somewhere to come back to and call home and be well received. Come back with a good heart and a good mind. Come back willing to work. Come back with your resources. You will be able to make life here. But don't come back here to undermine and destroy what we have built.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Holness says the government will put in enhanced measures to monitor incoming deportees who were convicted in the U.S.
The government is already planning in terms of putting in place new measures, enhanced security measures, to address those who we know have a criminal past or who have been interdicted in the United States, convicted in the United States, and are being returned after serving their criminal penalties there. And we will ensure that they are appropriately monitored here and that they are not in any way contributing to an increase in our crime or murder rate. We have sacrificed long and hard. We will not tolerate criminals coming back here to increase our crime rate or murder rate.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness.
In the meantime, the PNP says the Holness government must present a clear strategy on how it plans to accommodate the number of Jamaicans set to be deported from the U.S. Deputy Spokesperson on Foreign and Regional Affairs, Christopher Henry, says the number of undocumented Jamaicans poses significant problems to the country.
While deportation is not a new phenomenon, the volume which is now presenting itself poses significant problems to the country in terms of crime management and social services, as well as pressure on our already fragile economy. To date, while the minister has issued a statement saying that the government is considering a plan, we still have not heard the key elements of what will be put in place to minimize the negative effects on our country. Therefore, we ask the government to outline a plan of absorption of the deported individuals into the country via a multi-ministry/agency approach, which will protect security interests while providing avenues for these nationals to reintegrate successfully.
Christopher Henry, Deputy Spokesperson on Foreign and Regional Affairs.
Government Senator Abka Fitzhenley has slammed as corrupt a leaked voice note of PNP General Secretary Dr. Dayton Campbell suggesting that the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation, KSAMC, disbursed cash strategically to assist PNP caretakers. This in anticipation that 2 by-elections were to be called soon. Fitzhenley made the comment during his contribution to the State of the Nation debate in the Upper House today. During the debate, Senator Fitzhenley called for Dr. Campbell to step down as a commissioner of the Electoral Commission of Jamaica, ECJ. Siobhan Campbell reports.
Senator Fitzhenley told the State of the Nation debate that audio in which Dr. Campbell may be heard responding to an inquiry from then PNP caretaker for Central Kingston, Lawrence Rowe, about why he only received $300,000 in December last year from the KSAMC when other PNP caretakers received $500,000 is cause for major concern.
The General Secretary of the Opposition Party was asked about why the KSAMC allocated more resources in cash to some caretakers and MPs as opposed to other caretakers and MPs from the opposition party. And as opposed to saying, no, the KCAC is not in that business of giving monies or cash to caretakers, the CEO of the opposition party, which aspires to lead Jamaica, said, I can tell you why that happened. That's because they put more money in divisions where we are going to have by-elections. Can you imagine that, sir?
Senator Fitzhenley says the Lawrence Rowe, Dayton Campbell saga is evidence of organized criminality within the PNP Secretariat and the Andrew Swaby-led KSAMC.
And we're told as well in the media of conversations between a former councillor who now serves as an administrative staffer to Kingston's mayor, where the admin staffer told the caretaker, come collect cash, and commented, note well, the public should not know about this. Why? No, Mr. President, you are a well-known exponent of the criminal law. In fact, I'd say you are among the leading exponents of the criminal law in Jamaica. And you would very well know, sir, that that sort of treatment of public funds is unlawful and corrupt. In fact, this scandal which has hit the PNP Secretariat and the leadership of the KSAMC is not just corruption, sir. It is institutionalized, organized crime which entire Jamaica must condemn.
Fitzhenley says Dr. Campbell should call time on his tenure as a commissioner of the ECJ.
But the General Secretary of the opposition party happens to be a member of an illustrious institution, which is very important to the good functioning of the democratic processes in Jamaica, the Electoral Commission of Jamaica, where he incidentally would serve as an ombudsman. I believe, sir, that it would be appropriate for Dr. Dayton Campbell to resign as a commissioner of the Electoral Commission of Jamaica. Given the magnitude of this corruption scandal in which he's deeply mired.
Siobhan Campbell for Nationwide News.
In the meantime, opposition Senator Donna Scott Motley says politicians must acknowledge that there's corruption in both parties. She made the comment as she delivered her State of the Nation address in the Upper House on Friday.
You know, Senator Fitzhenley spoke about corruption. And we all have to acknowledge that there's corruption on both sides. There's always been. Nobody has a monopoly on it. But when you come here and you pretend that your side has only done wonderful things for Jamaica, and that your side has never done an act of corruption.
She went further, pointing to Prime Minister Andrew Holness's lack of certification by the Integrity Commission. According to Senator Scott Motley, the JLP cannot pretend their hands are clean.
So we have come such full circle in the protection of the leader. The leader has not been certified. From all accounts, there are matters which are concerning and it cannot be certified. And none of you find a problem with that? It's not one of us, is not just a senator, is not just a parliamentarian. It's a person who sets the moral compass for the entire country. And on top of it, he goes to the court to ask the court to declare a bill which was passed by this government of Jamaica in 2017, piloted by Minister Delroy Chuck, who now criticizes every clause as though he has never read it. The Prime Minister goes to the court to ask the court to declare it unconstitutional.
Senator Donna Scott Motley.
Deputy Mayor and Councillor at the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation, the JLP's Delroy Williams, is calling for a thorough investigation and audit following the serious allegations of cash disbursements for partisan purposes. Speaking with Nationwide News on Friday, Mr. Williams says the JLP caucus will leave no stone unturned in pursuing the truth.
Immediately, my immediate reaction to it was one of shock and one that I would say require scrutiny. Certainly, I would say an audit has to be done. An audit has to be done over the period to see, an investigation has to be done, which includes an audit. I would say I myself have requested certain documents to scrutinize over the period, and there are other measures that I would ask for, but at this time I will be meeting with the caucus of JLP councillors and to discuss the matter.
The deputy mayor says these reports, if true, raise serious concerns regarding the stewardship and fiscal integrity of the Andrew Swaby-led municipality. He says it concerns the country that less than a year into the stewardship of the PNP at the KSAMC, the integrity of the council has been called into question regarding political nepotism for the second time in 2 months. Councillor Williams says while they understand that the allegations are the subject of investigations, the JLP caucus has an obligation to demand answers of the chairman.
My view is that I welcome the investigation into the matter, and that I would say that I would request an audit. In the news coverage, it was said that there are 2 agencies probing and investigating, and so I think that is a good place to start. But this is a matter of, I would say, one that goes to the foundation of our local government. Our local government system depends on the trust that and the confidence that is in it by the people, and anything that undermines that trust is something that we have to address. And I would say this matter goes to threatens to undermine the very foundation of our system.
Delroy Williams, Deputy Mayor of Kingston.
You're listening to Nationwide News at 5. More news after these.
Value Drug Pharmacy offers curbside pickup and delivery of your branded and generic drugs. WhatsApp your prescription to 876-881-6695. The time by Value Drug Pharmacy is
5:15.
Rentokil Initial offers air purification solutions with triple filtration and unique auto-sensing capabilities that neutralizes malodor and replaces it with clean air. Call Rentokil Initial at 926-4236 for more details.
The temperature by Rentokil is...
It's 30 degrees Celsius in Kingston, 27 in Montego Bay.
Attention! The NWC's amnesty package is here, overflowing with a bucket full of goodies from January 2 to March 31, 2025. Disconnected for over 6 months, residential customers can get a 50% write-off. Pensioners and past beneficiaries get a full write-off on balances over 2 years. Do you have outstanding debt between 90 days and 2 years due to an underground leak? You may qualify for a 25% concession. Plus, enjoy discounts from 30 to 50% depending on your arrears. So, don't delay. Let's hear from you today. Dial 888-225-5692 or 888-CALL NWC. The NWC's amnesty package. Get your share from a bucket full of goodies. Conditions apply.
Continuing the news, Deputy Mayor and Councillor at the Kingston and St. Andrew Mayor of Kingston and St. Andrew, Andrew Swaby, says his municipal corporation stands ready to cooperate if an anti-corruption probe is to take place into the allegations that it used public funds to shore up the election campaigns for some of its representatives.
As Mayor of Kingston and Chairman of the KSAMC, I wish to reaffirm my commitment to transparency, accountability, and good governance. If an anti-corruption probe is underway, we welcome it and stand ready to cooperate fully as we continue to uphold the highest standard of public service.
In a statement released early on Friday, Mayor Swaby said municipalities do not disperse cash. He says the KSAMC did not authorize or facilitate cash disbursement to any individual. He adds that if any such transaction took place, it was not sanctioned by the corporation and did not involve public funds. Mayor Swaby says the corporation will continue to properly uphold the responsibility of ensuring public funds are spent correctly.
The KSAMC, under my leadership, remains committed to integrity, responsible governance, and the proper management of public resources. As public servants, we are entrusted with ensuring that public funds are used for the benefits of residents of Kingston St. Andrew, and I take this responsibility seriously.
Andrew Swaby, Mayor of Kingston and St. Andrew.
A clash between JLP and PNP councillors brought the annual general meeting of the Association of Local Government Authorities of Jamaica, ALGA-J, in Mandeville to an abrupt end on Friday. The skirmish began when ALGA-J members were set to vote for a new president and vice presidents. The melee resulted in the police being called to the Gulf View Hotel, where the meeting was being held. Shalois Michael reports.
Former Maypenny Mayor and JLP Councillor for the Rocky Point Division in Clarendon, Winston Maraj, is the sitting president of the association. Nationwide news sources say the clash between the councillors was triggered by a disagreement over a motion to move the voting forward on the agenda. PNP councillors reportedly objected, but the motion was carried. The ballot box was then snatched and the microphone grabbed from President Maraj. His left hand was bruised during the melee, and he reportedly sought medical attention. But the PNP caucus of councillors says the meeting ended prematurely because there were significant breaches of procedural rules and constitution. According to ALGA President Aspirant and Councillor of the Hayes Division in Clarendon, C.N. Barneswell, the meeting ended prematurely because of significant breaches of procedural rules and the association's constitution.
In the ALGA Constitution, Clause 6 under Business of Meeting, it states that at least 21 days prior to the date of a fixed AGM, each authority shall be forwarded by the Secretary a resolution or letters as it relates to what should be on the agenda. Fine, we'll get the notices. But it went on further to say that a copy of the agenda shall be sent to each council, each municipal corporation at least 5 days before the meeting. I would have seen the agenda just this morning. And as a result, we are saying to the Mayor, you have breached the Constitution of ALGA J, and we're asking you for us to have the discussion as laid out and deal with it. And he refused. So as a result, the members said that we cannot proceed.
Barneswell says there were also questions about the financial report.
The President's report and the financial report was not discussed any other. And the last time we met at this body, it was in 2017. And we have a lot of new councillors here. So we are saying to the President, let us have some conversation about the expenditure of the organization. All that is in the report is just 1 year expenditure, which is 2023-2024. There's no financial report as far back as 2017 as to how the council's subscription has been spent. And the members were trying to get the President, who was chairing the meeting, his attention to respond to these questions. Furthermore, the agenda item, there are some issues on the agenda items which we're asking for it to be corrected as it relates to the timing of the different events. That too, the President, who was chairing the meeting, moved for suspension of the standing order to move straight into the election. And we said, President, you cannot move into an election before we deal with these important matters, which is your report, but more so the financial statement report.
But Maraj later told the journalists that the meeting descended because PNP councillors were afraid they would lose the vote for the new ALGA president and vice presidents.
The meeting was called to order at precisely 10 o'clock, at 10:02 to be exact, and we're going down according to the agenda. Some of the items were cut short because majority of the meeting did not have any questions. Like the president's report is a 12-page long thing. I asked them if they wanted me to go through it. They said no, it was read. The financial report was there, and I asked any questions on the financial report because it was circulated. Everybody got a folder with it. And they said no questions. Majority of the room was there shouting no questions. And so the next item on the agenda now was the election of officers. However, PNP members thought to themselves that they would have been outvoted at that time. And so they decided to bring the meeting into chaos.
Shalois Michael for Nationwide News.
World in a Minute is brought to you by ABC Electrical Sales. We make things as easy as ABC. Hose assembly and supply, equipping Jamaica for success.
And Charles O'Connor Consulting Network, COCN, driven by international accounting standards, modern technology and integrity.
The World in a Minute.
Trinidad and Tobago's Commissioner of Police, Erla Harewood Christopher, has been arrested in connection with the importation of 2 high-powered military weapons. The guns, Accuracy International AX-2 bolt-action sniper rifles, and other high-value firearms, along with other high-value firearms and accessories, were acquired for the Strategic Services Agency, SSA. Deputy Police Commissioner Suzette Martin announced her boss's arrest at a media briefing this morning.
The Commissioner of Police, Ms. Erla Harewood Christopher, has been arrested and detained along with ex-SSA Director Roger Best over the past few days. We understand that this has raised significant public concern. and we are committed to providing as much information as possible while respecting the ongoing investigation. An active investigation is proceeding, and I must stress that it is still in progress. We are working closely with the Director of Public Prosecution and the relevant authorities to ensure that due process is followed and that all legal protocols are observed.
Suzette Martin, Deputy Commissioner of Police of Trinidad and Tobago. Commissioner Harewood Christopher was questioned on Thursday afternoon about the procurement process to acquire the weapons. Soon after, reports began circulating online that she had been arrested. The former director of the SSA, retired Major Roger Best, was detained on Wednesday after the authorities searched his home as part of the inquiry. Major Best had been initially questioned last May for the transfer of guns and ammunition, but was later released.
World in a Minute was brought to you by ABC Electrical Sales. We make things as easy as ABC. Hose Assembly and Supply, equipping Jamaica for success.
And Charles O'Connor Consulting Network, COCN, driven by international accounting standards, modern technology, and integrity. Recapping the top stories making nationwide news at this hour, Prime Minister Andrew Holness issues stern warning to Jamaicans returning to the island from the U.S. with criminal intentions.
This is not the Jamaica that you left 10 or 20 years ago. It is not the JCF that you left 10 or 20 years ago.
Senator Abka Fitzhenley says Dr. Dayton Campbell should resign from the ECJ over alleged organized criminality within the PNP Secretariat and the Andrew Swaby-led KSAMC.
But Opposition Senator Donna Scott Motley says the JLP cannot pretend its hands are clean on the matter of political corruption.
Deputy Mayor Delroy Williams calls for KSAMC to be audited over allegations of cash disbursements for partisan purposes.
I'm Nora Gay Banton.
And I'm Mahiri Stewart.
You can find the news on our website at nationwideradiojm.com and on the Nationwide app available on Google Play and the App Store. News next at 5 p.m. tomorrow.
News at 5 was brought to you by Fosrich Company Limited, fostering rich customer service.
If you owe the NWC for more than 2 years, your aged debt may qualify for a 30%, 35%, 40%, or even up to 50% discounts, depending on its age and other special circumstances. Visit nwcjamaica.com for further information. Don't delay. Let's hear from you today. Dial 888-225-5692 or 888-CALL NWC. Get your share from the NWC's bucket full of goodies, serving you in so many ways.
New World Home Improvement and Detail Cleaning offers high-quality detail cleaning and home improvement services. They cater to residential and commercial properties. They clean from the ceiling to the floor. They clean sofas, mattresses, carpets, and chairs. They deep clean and restore all floors. They repair and restore roofing. They do tiling, general paintings, drywall works, and other carpentry services to include property renovation. Call them 876-384-9313. Follow them at New World Detail Cleaning and Home Improvement.
Sports at 5 is brought to you by Total Tools. They almost always have it.
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Sports here on Nationwide 90 FM. I'm Wayne Walker. The third and final game in the T20 International Women's Series between West Indies and Bangladesh is now underway at Warner Park in St. Kitts. The Windies won the toss. They've asked the visitors to bat, and at sports time, they were 27 for 1 after 6 overs. Dilara Akhtar-Dola is the batter dismissed. She was bowled for 11 by Janila Glasgow. The Windies won the first 2 games and be aiming to sweep the series this evening. The Jamaica Scorpions have set the Windward Island Volcanoes a mammoth 420 to win their West Indies Championship encounter at Arna's Vale in St. Vincent. At the close on day 3, the home team reached 65 for 1, still 355 runs away from winning, entering tomorrow's final day. The Scorpions declared their second innings on 277 for 7, with first inning Centurion Jermaine Blackwood getting 70. Wicketkeeper player Daniel Beckford making 50 not out, Kurt McKenzie 46, and Carlos Brown 30. Kenneth Demba claimed 5 for 95. Scores in the game: Jamaica Scorpions 337 and 227 for 7 declared. The Windward Islands Volcanoes 195. New Zealand will start favourites when they play host Jamaica in the two-day Davis Cup World Group 2 playoffs at the Eric Bell Tennis Centre starting tomorrow. However, President of the Jamaica Tennis Association, John Azar, believes the draw would favour Jamaica.
New Zealand is a tough team. We're taking nothing for granted, of course. I mean, on paper, they're actually higher ranked than we are. But we had the official draw just about an hour ago, and from my personal standpoint, I kind of like very much how the draw has played out. I mean, our number one player, Blaise Bicknell, will be playing first up. God's willing, we hope to get 1 point on the board there and then keep New Zealand on the back foot thereafter. So far, so good. We're taking nothing for granted, but definitely I like our chances going in. The guys have been working hard. They certainly look good together. They look good on court. And when you put in the hard work, I mean, God's willing, good things happen thereafter.
The tie is a best-of-5 series, with the first to win 3 taking the series clearly.
The winner of the tie goes up to Group 2. The loser of the tie is relegated to Group 3. So that's insofar as what's at stake. Over the 2 days, it's a best-of-5 match series. So the first team to win 3 matches wins the tie. And the format is on Saturday, start at 11 a.m., 2 singles matches. On Sunday morning, starts at 11 a.m. with the doubles, and then the reverse singles thereafter as necessary.
Azar says the visiting players and officials are satisfied with the facility.
They're happy with the courts. The ITF officials came into the island earlier this week. The referee is certainly dotting his I's and crossing his T's, but thankfully he too has been very pleased. So I think that patrons coming here can expect the venue to be decked out to first world standards, I mean, right across the board. And we're certainly looking forward to 2 fantastic days of tennis ahead.
That's John Azar, and we'll have live reports from the Eric Bell Tennis Centre during Sports Nation Live tomorrow. We'll also be doing live reports from the opening round of the local basketball club championships, including the opening ceremony. Now, 2 of Jamaica's finalists from last year's Paris Olympic Games will be in action on Sunday at the New Balance World Indoor Tour Gold Meeting in Boston. National champion and outdoor record holder Akira Nugent will open her season in the 60 meters hurdles against the Olympic champion Masai Russell of the USA and the indoor world record holder Devine Charlton of the Bahamas. Romaine Beckford, who was a surprise finalist in the French capital, will go up against the former world champion Donald Thomas of the Bahamas. Olympic 100 meters champions Noah Lyles and Julian Alfred will contest the respective 60 meters, while the world and Olympic sprint hurdles champion Grant Holloway will also be in action. That will do it for sports.
Sports at 5 was brought to you by Total Tools. They almost always have it.
Since 2016, 156,000 more Jamaicans are working. This is more than any other time in our history. Your government is caring for you.
The time brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister is
5:32.
Missed your chance to spruce up in December? Then don't miss this opportunity. Design Options announces their after stock taking sale. Discounts on area rugs, cushion covers, selected drapery rods, and fabrics. Stocks are limited on some items, so come early. Our knowledgeable and courteous staff are here to help. Design Options Limited, what the well-dressed room is wearing. Located at 8 Shortwood Road, telephone 876-931-6354.
Want to reduce your high electricity bills? Then Peak Energy has the solution for you. From grid-tied to hybrid solar inverters with full lithium-ion battery pack. Installation and maintenance packages available. Visit us at Shop 1, 3 Mosquito Valley Road, Red Hill, St. Andrew. Call 876-279-8820 or 944-0668. Or email us at peakenergysolutionsja@gmail.com. Peak Energy for everything solar.
For all your electrical needs, visit ABC Electrical Sales. They stock a wide variety of electrical supplies including plugs, switches, panel boards and conduits, plus energy-saving fixtures. ABC Electrical Sales stocks brands like GE, Siemens, Philips, Cutler Hammer and Allen Bradley. They also offer free island-wide delivery just to suit your needs. Visit them at Shop 8, Hagley Park Plaza, Kingston 10, or call 876-754-3714-5 or 876-754-3825-8. ABC Electrical Sales, for a better choice in the electrical business.
On Friday, January 31, tune into Nationwide at 5 for the 23rd Annual Neurosciences Symposium and Workshop starting at 6:30 p.m. Join us for an engaging fireside conversation at Eclipse Great House, Half Moon in St. James. It will feature a distinguished panel of experts: Minister of Finance and Public Service, Favour Williams, Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton, President and CEO of Cornerstone and Barita Investments, Paul Simpson and Jason Chambers, and President and CEO of Qantas, Dr. Adrian Stokes. This thought-provoking conversation will be moderated by an expert in the field, offering valuable insights into the future of healthcare financing. Don't miss this unique opportunity to hear from leaders shaping the landscape of healthcare in Jamaica. So tune in to Nationwide at 5, 6 to 8 p.m. on January 31 for the 23rd Annual Neurosciences Symposium and Workshop, or visit the Eclipse Great House at Half Moon in St. James. All this and more only on Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media. This broadcast is brought to you by the Caribbean Neurological Association in association with Barita Investments Limited.
Good morning and welcome to the newest addition to the Nationwide News Network family on Hot 102. Good afternoon, I'm Erica Allen. I'm Elizabeth Bennett. In Nationwide News at this hour.
This is Nationwide. I'm Cliff Hughes.
And I'm Carol Narcisse. Morning, welcome to This Morning on Hot 102.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Beverly Anderson Manley. Good morning and welcome.
For 20 years, Nationwide 90 FM has been your trusted source for breaking news, delivering critical updates when you needed them most.
3:37 in the afternoon, we interrupt to bring you more from the One Don Klansman gang trial. Another guilty verdict.
With fearless, fact-based journalism that unearthed the truth.
Between 2012 and 2018, nearly $5.5 million was taken from the track legend.
And insightful commentary that sparked meaningful conversations and shifted perspectives.
Welcome to the front page. I'm Emily Crooks. I am Naomi Francis. We're pleased to be joined by Roger Clark.
From the stories that shook Jamaica,
we're having an earthquake,
to those that inspired change and left lasting impacts.
In 2014, to be dealing with an issue such as the Marianine case.
Nationwide 90 FM has been there, diving deep into the issues that matter most to you. As we mark 20 years of dedicated service in 2025, we honor the trust you have placed in us and reaffirm our commitment to serving you, the Jamaican people. Rooted in truth, fairness, and integrity, we continue to provide incisive reporting with a foundation of accountability and respect. While we celebrate our journey, we are also focused on the future, fueled by the same passion and purpose that has always driven us. Thank you for supporting Team Revolution for 2 decades. Stay with us. The best is yet to come.
Good afternoon, listeners and viewers. It is 5:37, and it's the 31st of January, the last day of the first month. Thank you for joining us. This is The Cover Story, and I'm Siobhan Campbell.
Good afternoon, Siobhan. Good afternoon, listeners. I'm Ricardo Brooks.
How are you doing, Ricardo, out there in Montego Bay?
I'm doing very well, Siobhan. I wish this could be the office all the time. I am at the Half Moon Resort in Rose Hall, Montego Bay. Can I just say happy birthday Nationwide? Books, play a happy birthday song for me. Today we're 20.
20 years.
Yeah.
I think I've been here for nearly half that period of time.
That's crazy, Siobhan. That's crazy. Is Boogs gonna play a happy birthday song for me?
Boogs will have a happy birthday song for you. Boogs, how long have you been here? I think you've been here pretty much since Nationwide inception, don't it? Yeah, 20 years Boogs has been here.
Oh, really? He has? No, that wouldn't make sense. No, Boogs is not that old.
I don't know. Oh, 12. Boogs says he's been here 12 years. 12 years.
That's a long time. So I'm not getting a happy birthday song then.
Unfortunately, no. But let's turn to the matters of the day, Mr. Brooks. A clash between the JLP and PNP councillors brought the annual general meeting of the Association of Local Government Authorities of Jamaica, that's the ALGA J, in Mandeville to an abrupt end on Friday. The skirmish began when ALGA J members were set to vote for a new president and vice presidents. The melee resulted in the police being called to the Gulfview Hotel where the meeting was being held.
Former Mapin Mayor and the GLP councillor for the Rocky Point Division in Clarendon, Winston Mirage, is the sitting president of the association. And Nationwide News sources say the clash between the councillors was triggered by a disagreement over a motion to move the voting forward on the agenda. The PNP councillors reportedly objected, but the motion was carried. The ballot box was then, if you can believe it, snatched, and the microphone grabbed from President Mirage.
His left hand was bruised during the melee and he reportedly sought medical attention. But Mirage later told journalists that the meeting descended because the PNP councillors were afraid they would lose the vote for the new ALGA president and vice presidents.
The meeting was called to order at precisely 10 o'clock, at 10:02 to be exact, and we're going down according to the agenda. Some of the items were cut short because majority of the meeting did not have any questions. Like the president's report is a 12-page long thing. I asked them if they wanted me to go through it. They said no, taken as read. The financial report was there, and I asked any questions on the financial report because it was circulated. Everybody had got a folder with it. And they said no questions. Majority of the room was there shouting no questions. And so the next item on the agenda now was the election of officers. However, PNP members thought to themselves that they would have been outvoted at that time, and so they decided to bring the meeting into chaos.
Stun. Winston Mirage there. To discuss the incident, we're being joined by the mayor of Montego Bay, the GLP's Richard Vernon, who was in attendance at the meeting. We also invited ALGA President Aspirant and Councillor for the Hayes Division in Clarendon, Cian Barneswell, to join us. However, he was unable to, and we've been advised that Councillor Barneswell is the person designated to speak on the matter for the People's National Party. However, he did speak with journalists about the incident, saying Councillor Mirage, who chaired the meeting, moved a motion to bypass the discussions about ALGA's financial report. And according to Barneswell, that financial report had not been presented since 2017.
The meeting came to an halt because the members is of the view that the president who was chairing the meeting wasn't abiding to the agenda. The meeting was scheduled to start at 10, and I think it started shortly after 10. We went into prayer, but what the contention is that the president's report and the financial report was not discussed any at all. And the last time we met at this body, it was in 2017, and we have a lot of new councillors here. So we are saying to the president, let us have some conversation about the expenditure of the organization. All that is in the report is just 1 year expenditure, which is 2023-2024. There's no financial report as far back as 2017 as to how the council's subscription has been spent. And the members were trying to get the president, who was chairing the meeting, his attention to respond to these questions. Furthermore, the agenda item, there are some issues on the agenda items which we're asking for it to be corrected as it relates to the timing of the different events. That too, the president who was chairing the meeting moved for suspension of the standing order to move straight into the election. I would say, President, you cannot move into an election before we deal with these important matters, which is your report, but more so the financial statement report.
Councillor Barneswell also added that the meeting descended into disorder because of significant breaches of procedural rules and the association's constitution.
in the ALGA Constitution, Clause 6 under business of meeting, it states that at least 21 days prior to the date of a fixed AGM, each authority shall be forwarded by the Secretary a resolution or letters as it relates to what should be on the agenda. Fine, we get the notices. But it went on further to say that a copy of the agenda shall be sent to each council, each municipal corporation at least 5 days before the meeting. I would have seen the agenda just this morning. And as a result, we are saying to the mayor, you have breached the constitution of ALGA, and we're asking you for us to have the discussion as laid out and deal with it. And he refused. So as a result, the members said that we cannot proceed with that kind of approach.
We have to wrap in a few seconds, but the mayor felt that this happened, the PNP were disruptive because they felt that they didn't have enough members. They would have been outvoted.
No. The time for voting would have been, based upon the agenda, the time for voting would have been 11 o'clock. And when he asked for suspension of the standing order, was about 10:15. Right? So we were nowhere near to having an election. We were supposed to be discussing the presentation, both from himself as the president and also the general secretary would have tabled the financial statement report. Because I said there are some missing years which you need to know how the money was spent. And that is why you have the annual general meeting. It's not just to vote in person, but to have a discussion about the organization, see its financial statements, if it is weak, where it's lacking, what is happening, so we can be able to have a full discussion as we move forward.
All right. Well, thanks for your time. We'll be following up. So thank you so much for your time in the meeting.
We're being joined now by the Mayor of Montego Bay, Richard Vernon. Good afternoon, Mayor.
Good afternoon. I'm happy that you guys are enjoying Montego Bay. Let me congratulate you on your 20th in 2025 and wish you all the best for this new year as well.
We appreciate the good wishes. Thank you so much. Mayor, is this kind of thing normal? Let me use that word. At ALGA meetings?
Normal? Well, certainly not for the Jamaica Labour Party. It isn't. We usually conduct our business in the highest level, and it was very unfortunate today that the meeting ended the way it did. It fell into disrepute and had to be immediately adjourned. What we must notice is that the ALGA is not a random body. It has a constitution. It came into effect by an act of parliament, and it outlines in the constitution how we are to conduct meetings and the disciplinary actions associated with breaches. I heard the expression of the gentleman in Clarendon, Mr. Barngel, about notices being served. I can tell you that each council was duly notified by way of writing what will be discussed at the meeting, and that is sufficient notice and agenda matters. However, it felt as if the necessary items that were supposed to be on the agenda were not expressed in that circular. Then they also had the right to request it and to say something as members, as I would believe that they are paying members, because I also understand that not all the councillors in some of the municipalities are paying their fees, notwithstanding the fact that the municipal corporation will pay the fees. So I would hope that these persons who are members, they have seen the circular, and if they had concerns, would have communicated to the office prior to the meeting today. The agenda was sent yesterday, and it outlined exactly how the meeting would be conducted. It says registration at 9 a.m. At 10 a.m., the meeting would be called to order. We would have prayer and then welcome and introduction of chairman, president's opening remarks. By the time we reached, we had a quorum, reached from Montego Bay. We had a quorum there, and the meeting started promptly, 10 a.m. At the time, the chairman went into the proceedings of the meeting, as I discussed, as I highlighted just now, and the chairman also did a brief report and asked for comments. No one commented on his report. He also notified us that the financial report was circulated, and it was from yesterday. He asked for comments on that. None. I hear now that they are asking about matters pertaining to the financial report. By constitution as well, if the councillors wanted to convene a meeting out of concern for not receiving a financial report since 2017, according to what the gentleman said. They also could have requested a special meeting with Algaji to discuss these matters. None was requested.
Before you continue, Ricardo, we're up on a break, so please, after these messages.
Clearing personal, non-commercial shipments at the port? Avoid the wait. Request a contactless clearance through your agent today. It's more efficient. It's secure. The time by the Jamaica Customs Agency is...
It's 5:48.
For over 30 years, Chris and Charles has been financing your goals, dreams, creating your great moments. Celebrate the occasion with us. Borrow $1 million, pay less than $25,000 monthly, and get 30% off your processing fees. No guarantor needed. Call 876-920-4189 or WhatsApp 876-838-9028. Conditions apply. When you think loans, think Chris and Charles.
Enough power tool, big to small. Jackama figure dig the wall. Upper Total Tools. Beat back a figure trim the lawn. We have everything you job them on. Total Tools. We rent them, sell them and fix them. Also give Total Tools a call. When I say home improvement, landscape construction, a Total Tools are your option. Home improvement, landscape construction, Total Tools are your option.
Total Tools, located at 102 Main Street, Ocho Rios, 34 Slive Road, Kingston.
And lot C6 Jacksaw, Sentence Bay. Call us today.
Get ready to receive your share of a bucket full of goodies from the NWC.
That's so nice, eh?
From January 2 to March 31, 2025, you could benefit from the debt amnesty.
Tell me more.
NWC has amnesty offers that include 50% write-offs, 100% on balances over 2 years, and 25 to 50% on balances depending on the age of the balance.
Who can qualify?
Practically anyone with arrears. If your residential account is disconnected for 6 months or more, you qualify. Or if you are a pensioner or path beneficiary with a balance over 2 years, you qualify. Plus, commercial and residential accounts with balances over 2 years also qualify for discounts. Call 888-225-5692. Check the NWC website or visit any NWC office today.
Welcome back, listeners and viewers. We're talking with Mayor of Montego Bay, Richard Vernon, regarding a tussle which took place at the Algaji meeting. Continue, Ricardo. You had a question for the mayor.
Right, Mayor. So I get that there was some, well, I'm going to call it procedural disagreement, but how did we get to the point of Winston Mirage seemingly being injured? What exactly transpired at that point? You were there?
They have not requested a financial report in 7 years or more, and all of a sudden they wanted a financial report. Some discussion to be had on the finances. That was circulated. They got a chance to peruse it. The question was asked, are there any comments on the financial report? None. The delay caused a member to stand up and ask for the suspension of the standing order to support a motion for the suspension of the standing order so that we could convene the election, because that is what the main matter is for the day, and persons wanted to get on with it and get back to their business. And it was seconded, but it failed because there was no voting and for that motion to be carried. Nonetheless, we had to move into the election part because we had completed the presentation by the chairman, the president. We completed the financial report, and the next item on the agenda was the election of officers, which was supposed to be presided over by Honorable Garfield Green Costos, and he sent a representative, I believe he was unavailable at the time. And we started that process. So the chairman, the president said nomination, and then a member stood from the floor and nominated Councillor Edwards from the St. Catherine Municipal Corporation for chairman. And it was requested that it be seconded. But by the time we got the chance to second it, there was a huge uproar. And as a matter of fact, the uproar started to mount from the the motion was moved for the suspension of a standing order. They started to cave in on Mr. Mirage.
And when you say they, who is the they?
The persons who were disagreeing. I believe
these are councillors.
Yes, councillors. I believe they are from the People's National Party, because the members from the Jamaica Labour Party, they were seated, and most of them were seated. Some stood. They were like wondering what was happening because we're trying to get out of the business. Now they started to cave in on him, and perhaps expressing themselves in such a way as to have him change his mind about how the meeting is being conducted, but he proceeded. By the time the member used the mic to nominate Mr. Edwards and handed back the mic to Mr. Mirage, it was swiftly and aggressively grabbed from him, and that is when he sustained the injury to his hand. At that point in time, Mr. Mirage was advised by members from the floor that, this meeting has fallen into disrepute. I don't think that you'll be able to manage this meeting anymore based on what is happening. And we believe that based on what the Constitution says as well in terms of conduct of meeting, it should be immediately adjourned. And that is what Mr. Mirage did, and he left to seek medical attention.
You said just before you continue, you said that some were expressing themselves in a way as to try to get him to change his mind. In what way exactly were they expressing themselves? Was this menacing?
Rosy, loud, aggressive. Yes, majority of the members there, because the meeting needs 1/3 to start as a quorum. We have 228 councillors or divisions, and we had approximately 100 councillors in the room, so we were able to start the meeting. Majority of the members wanted to get on with the business. So when the motion was moved from the floor for the suspension of the standing order, majority supported the move because they wanted to get on with business. But they wouldn't have it today. And unfortunately, it fell into disrepute, and we had to see to adjourn, and here we are.
Mayor Vernon, I know we have you for just a brief amount of time, but why would there be a need for the suspension of the standing orders if you, based on what you've said here, if the agenda had reached the point where that election was to be held?
And that is what I was saying. It was not carried because the president said at the time that we don't even need to have the suspension because we are here at the time for the election. I asked the question if there are any comments pertaining to the financial report. Nobody said anything. None. I asked the question for comments pertaining to the chairman's report. None. By the time I said election, people wanted to ask questions pertaining to the financial report, which we see was, that was a little bit off. So we wanted to get on with the business. And the members stood up and moved the motion, and that is when the confusion started.
You'd agree with me, Mayor, that this was an absolute disgrace, yes?
We have had a week of disgrace pertaining to local government. Very unfortunate. From what I'm hearing at the other side of the island to today, I'm very disheartened as a local government representative.
And in terms of reconvening the meeting, what are the plans going forward?
Well, the Alga J executive will have to speak to that. I know that they have mobilized funding to this day through to ensure that we have a meeting and an election. I'm not sure what it will be for them in terms of financing another one soon. And I believe that based on the political tension that is there, arising from what is happening in the Maypen Municipal, the Kleiner Municipal Corporation, pertaining to the mayor of Maypen, and what is happening generally pertaining to election. This is an election year, so to speak. And I don't think that it is advisable, but that decision will be left up to the executive. They will have to speak with the members and come to some agreement as to the way forward pertaining to another meeting.
That is Mayor of Montego Bay, Richard Vernon. Thank you so much for your time, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. All the best.
In the interest of time, we're just going to go straight into the other matter we have to discuss today. That's Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness, who has issued a stern warning to Jamaicans who return to the island from the United States with criminal intentions. 5,120 Jamaicans who are not in detention are set to be deported from the U.S. They have been issued with final orders for removal from the country by the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement and Department of Homeland Security. The move comes as the Trump administration intensifies their crackdown on undocumented immigrants. Speaking at a handing over ceremony at the Roehampton in St. James today, Prime Minister Holness said those Jamaicans who choose to return home to a life of crime will not be tolerated. We have that video now.
We are prepared to receive all our hard-working Jamaicans who have been in the United States or wherever they may have gone for economic benefits. Jamaica has always been, since its colonial days to now, a net supplier of talent to the world. It may be a good thing to have some of our Jamaican talent return to our shores to help us to build our country. There are many Jamaicans now who are feeling uncertain in the United States and who are considering returning on their own to avoid the indignity of being deported. And we welcome you back to Jamaica. We want your talent, we want your resources. There are many opportunities in Jamaica that together we can take advantage of and build the country that we would want. But let me be clear that for those Jamaicans who intend to come back with crime and violence to undermine what we have been building here, let me be clear to you that this is not the Jamaica that you left 10 or 20 years ago. It is not the JCF that you left 10 or 20 years ago. You will either meet a judge or your maker if you come back to Jamaica and violate our laws and create havoc. I know that there are many who will be returning to Jamaica, coming back to lovely communities like these, rural areas like these, and they may attempt to set up gangs, get involved in scamming, and undermine the values of the communities that they return to.
That is the Prime Minister speaking over at the Roehampton in St. James, addressing the concerns about many of the immigrants who will be returning to the island in the coming weeks and months due to new directives coming from the White House. Well, that is the end of the cover story for this afternoon, listeners and viewers. I'm going to hand you over to my co-host, Ricardo Brooks, who is over there in Montego Bay after these messages.
The time brought to you by Guardian Life. Live secure, live easy is
6 o'clock.
Outperform, outlast. With top performance. Jackama. Reliable, full stop, not comma. We have the expertise for drilling and demolition. We have the power tools for plumbers and electricians. Fancy select tools, free parts and free repairs. 3 to 3 years. Hilton, available at Delta Supply, 106 Hagley Park Road. Call us at 876-302-61114. Delta Supply, we service what we sell.
Start your fitness journey today and make 2025 your healthiest yet with Express Fitness. State-of-the-art equipment, expert trainers, and encouraging community are here to support you every step of the way. Join now and take the first step towards a stronger, happier you. Express Fitness, starting at only $9,500 per month with 11 locations island-wide. Your gym for all your needs. Visit www.expressfitnessja.com to sign up today.
Enough power tool, big to small. Jack on my figure, dig the wall. Upper total tools. Beat back a figure, trim the lawn. We have everything a job demand. Total tools. We rent them, sell them, and fix them. Also give Total Tools a call. When I say home improvement, landscape construction, a Total Tools are your option. Home improvement, landscape construction, Total Tools are your option.
Total Tools, located at 102 Main Street, Ocho Rios, 34 Slive Road, Kingston.
And lot C6 Jacksaw, Sentence Bay. Call us today.
Good morning and welcome to the newest addition to the Nationwide News Network family on Hot 102.
Good afternoon, I'm Erica Allen. I'm Elizabeth Bennett. In Nationwide News at this hour.
This is Nationwide. I'm Cliff Hughes.
And I'm Carol Narcisse.
Morning, welcome to This Morning on Hot 102.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Beverly Anderson Manley. Good morning and welcome.
For 20 years, Nationwide 90 FM has been your trusted source for breaking news, delivering critical updates when you needed them most. 3:37 in the afternoon, we interrupt to bring you more from the One Don Klansman gang trial. Another guilty verdict. With fearless, fact-based journalism that unearthed the truth.
Between 2012 and 2018, nearly $5.5 million was taken from the track legend.
And insightful commentary that sparked meaningful conversations and shifted perspectives.
Welcome to the front page. I'm Emily Crooks. I am Naomi Francis. We're pleased to be joined by Roger Clark.
From the stories that shook Jamaica, we're having an earthquake, to those that inspired change and left lasting impacts.
In 2014, to be dealing with an issue such as the Mario Dean case.
Nationwide 90 FM has been there, diving deep into the issues that matter most to you. As we mark 20 years of dedicated service in 2025, we honor the trust you have placed in us and reaffirm our commitment to serving you, the Jamaican people, rooted in truth, fairness, and integrity. We continue to provide incisive reporting with a foundation of accountability and respect. While we celebrate our journey, we are also focused on the future, fueled by the same passion and purpose that has always driven us. Thank you for supporting Team Revolution for 2 decades. Stay with us. The best is yet to come.
On Friday, January 31, tune into Nationwide at 5 for the 23rd Annual Neurosciences Symposium and Workshop starting at 6:30 p.m. Join us for an engaging fireside conversation at Eclipse Great House, Half Moon in St. James. It will feature a distinguished panel of experts: Minister of Finance and Public Service, Favour Williams, Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton, President and CEO of Cornerstone and Barita Investments, Paul Simpson and Jason Chambers, and President and CEO of Qantas, Dr. Adrian Stokes. This thought-provoking conversation will be moderated by an expert in the field, offering valuable insights into the future of healthcare financing. Don't miss this unique opportunity to hear from leaders shaping the landscape of healthcare in Jamaica. So tune in to Nationwide at 5, 6 to 8 p.m. on January 31 for the 23rd Annual Neurosciences Symposium and Workshop, or visit the Eclipse Great House at Half Moon in St. James. All this and more only on Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media. This broadcast is brought to you by the Caribbean Neurological Association in association with Barita Investments Limited.
Not a mercy. This one is very classic, dedicated to all the schoolers who are taking them.
If you've ever struggled to pass an exam, then you'll know that students today are under great pressure to get good grades and secure qualification needed to move on to higher education. The problem is that too many students are struggling alone and could really benefit from connecting with hardworking teachers and other bright students in other parts of the country and the region. Join me, Dennis Brooks, this and every Friday evening from 8 to 9, with a repeat on Saturday morning from 8 to 9. For the A-Team, a study group on radio, my team of teachers, students, and experts will break down the syllabus, giving you information, tips, and past paper questions that will help you get top grades in your upcoming exams. Follow us on Facebook Live and on Twitter and be a part of the community. It's the A-Team. Fridays at 8 p.m., with a repeat at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning. It's your free extra class on radio and social media. And it's right here on Nationwide 90 FM, the revolution in media.
It's undeniable that we should be together.
The true beauty of music is that it connects people. It carries a message. It speaks to you. It changes you. And that's exactly what we do just for you every Sunday as we take you to Urban Paradise, 9:10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Urban Paradise is our weekly musical journey that will serve up 110 glorious minutes of positive storytelling through music, mixed in with inspirational features to provoke thought and to heal the soul.
Like a dream come true, just wanna be with you.
So join me, Diane Ashton Smith, this and every Sunday, 9:10 a.m. to 11 a.m. here on Nationwide 90 FM, a revolution in media. Urban Paradise, opening our hearts, connecting to others.
Exciting news! The Design Studio on Nationwide 90 FM just got a whole lot bigger. Join us this and every Saturday now from 1 to 3 p.m. for an exclusive show that elevates your home, mind, and soul. Discover the latest interior design trends to create your dream sanctuary. Unlock your true potential with personal growth strategies. Nourish your body and spirit with expert wellness tips. Don't miss out on the inspiration you need to live your best life. Tune in to the Design Studio this and every Saturday from 1 to 3 p.m. and take the first step towards a more fulfilling you.
Make me sweat, make me harder. Come into the parlor, there's a welcome there for you.
Welcome to the Mayor's Parlor with Desmond McKenzie.
From 1 to 6 p.m. every Sunday, you'll now get more of your favorite vintage music.
Put your head on my shoulder.
Nationwide 90 FM will transform your Sunday into a musical time machine that will take you way back.
Come on, let's go back in time.
This magic moment.
Journey into yesteryear with Desmond McKenzie in the Mayor's Parlor.
I've got the music to jog your memory and make you smile.
Put your sweet lips a little closer to the phone.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy the best in vintage music.
Come into the Mayor's Parlor every Sunday between 1 and 6 p.m. here on Nationwide 90 FM, a revolution in media.
Tune in to Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media. Stay ahead of the curve with our cutting-edge reporting and accurate breaking news coverage.
We are having an earthquake. Oh, God.
Hear it here first on Nationwide 90 FM. Tune in, turn up the volume, and listen. We bring a mix of news, entertainment, and sports to your lives.
Nationwide 90 FM's live and continuous coverage of the World Championships in Budapest, Hungary.
News and discussions week mornings.
Coming up in the news at 6 for this morning.
Entertainment in the afternoons, then news again in the evenings.
Nationwide news at this hour, fired.
Also tune in to the entertainment and sports shows in the nights and on the weekends.
It is Boy Things After Dark right here on Nationwide 90 FM.
Everything is news, from current affairs and entertainment to sports, business, and other categories.
Nationwide 90 FM. This is Beanie, give it to them. Zaga, Zen.
From every whisper to every commotion.
That's rubbish. The KSAMC cannot investigate itself.
Every news story unfolds here first at Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media. Every sound is a story, and every story we share is news.
Good evening to you. Thank you so much for staying with us here on Nationwide at 5. I'm Ricardo Brooks, coming to you from the Half Moon Resort in Montego Bay. We're here for the Caribbean Neurological Association's 23rd Annual Neurosciences Symposium and Workshop. The theme of this year's event is Global Health, Technology and Leadership in Healthcare. The symposium is being hosted by the University Hospital of the West Indies this year, and the UHWI says this year's symposium, it promises to be a groundbreaking event offering a platform for cutting-edge advancements such as endoscopic spine surgeries, endovascular treatments, and AI-driven diagnostics. The event is set to feature a stellar roster of speakers from globally renowned institutions. Those include the Toronto Western Hospital, Weill Cornell, and Baptist Health International. Local, regional, and international experts are set to highlight current innovations in medical technology, surgical techniques, and surgical technology. The symposium will also feature discussions on critical topics in healthcare financing and sustainability, which are vital, as you know, listeners, to advancing the Caribbean's healthcare landscape. These sessions also promise to provide key insights into innovative financial models and partnerships that can drive growth and accessibility in the sector. And over the years, the Caribbean Neurological Association has established themselves as the region's leading platform for the exchange of knowledge, research findings, and innovations in the field of neurosurgery. This evening, you'll also hear a panel discuss healthcare financing and ways to explore how social services and healthcare gets that financing. First up, with me, Dr. Carl Bruce, you know him well, consultant neurosurgeon at the University Hospital of the West Indies. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Ricardo, and good evening to the listeners.
How are you?
We've been good.
Good. All right, so first of all, when Jamaicans hear a symposium on neurosurgery, I actually asked Dana and Jamal when I was coming here, I said neurosurgery, that has to do with the brain, right? And then Jamal wanted to be a bright spark. He said, no, technically neurons. So let me ask you to explain to our listeners why we're having a symposium on neurosurgery. What's the importance?
No, well, you're absolutely correct. Both of you are correct. It's the study of the brain, the spine, and the peripheral nerves that leave the spine and supply our fingers, our movements, etc. And obviously, you know, we say it's a final frontier in medicine. It's the one that has taken us a lot of time to break through in our understanding and our treatment, but it's the one that's common to us. You know, we all know somebody who has had a stroke, Ricardo, or somebody who has had a brain tumor, or, you know, somebody who has some back pain or neck pain and a slip disc with pain radiating down in the leg or numbness in the feet.
Right.
And we are the specialties who have to deal with that and to ensure that we restore people to a working state of health. And so we are always wanting to stay ahead of the curve in what we can deliver for our patients.
And what's the importance of a symposium like this to that work that you just outlined?
Well, the changes in medical care are so rapid, and the changes in technology are so rapid. Ricardo, the computer you and I would have used maybe 10 years ago, you know, or the phone we would have used 10 years ago, no longer exists, you know. The computer that we carry around called our telephone has changed that. It's the same thing with medical technology. When we're doing brain surgery now, we're using GPS, as we call it, to ensure that we land in the brain exactly where we want to go.
Right.
When we're doing somebody with a brain hemorrhage, we no longer open the head. We can use minimally invasive techniques and go all the way up through the bloodstream and seal off that blood vessel.
Really?
When we're doing the spine, we no longer make this incision and cut your spine anymore. We put in a television camera and we get the job done. So as the technology has changed, not only in healthcare, we have had to adapt. And therefore, because of the fast moving pace, we have to each year do an update or continue on medical education, not only on the medicine itself, but also all the areas that are associated with delivering that high quality care for our patients.
And we in the region, and specifically here in Jamaica, we've been able to keep pace with how that technology is moving, because I imagine some of those things must be costly.
Absolutely. And we have a lot of visitors who come to Jamaica and the University of the West Indies to look at the techniques that we have developed. And I think it's a credit to the people of Jamaica.
Yes.
Because for 77 years, if you recall, when the University of the West Indies, the University College of the West Indies, UC, as my grandparents called it, started in 1948, it was because the state of public health in the colonies was so bad that they thought that because of the desperate shortage for medical specialists, they need to start the university with medicine. We have been able to maintain that high quality training by adapting and providing patient care and using technology to teach our medical students, to teach our residents, our registrar and specialists, and to do research and groundbreaking research that have solved many problems worldwide, including, you would know we're the experts at malnutrition and sickle cell disease. Well, the neuroscience is one of the areas that we're very strong at as a country, as a university, and as a region.
But I imagine the financing of all of that is still important, which is why healthcare financing is such a critical subject matter here at the symposium.
Absolutely. The technology that you use in your broadcast, that you're using in your outside broadcast here, is going to change. And so too the technology that we use in medicine. And so the question becomes, how do we finance healthcare? And we want to explore that because, yes, we are passionate about our patients. But if you can't provide the pharmaceuticals, the disposables, if you can't build new infrastructure, they'd say concrete has a life of 50 years. We're now 77 years old. If we can't train the next generation, if we can't bring in the latest technology to improve the outcome of a stroke, then we're going to have a challenge. And it can't all be hospital-based treatment. We have to start from the cycle of preventative medicine, where we talk about exercise and diet, taking care of our cholesterol, limiting our sugar intake or alcohol intake. We talk about smoking and the effects of that. And we try to keep everybody in good health, keep pace, get you running, get you riding, get you walking, get you wading in the water to make sure that you are in the best possible state of health.
Finish the thought.
No, I was saying we saw the effect of that in COVID.
Yes.
The patients who had, Ricardo, morbidities such as obesity and diabetes, etc., did not do well during the pandemic. And so we know we have to take care of that side before we even get to hospital care.
And that financing, is that public financing? Is that public-private financing or just private financing? How do we model that? How do we see that playing out?
You've hit the nail on the head. In Jamaica, we have no user fee in the public system. In the university system, you have a user fee. You also have about 22% of Jamaicans who have health insurance, and we definitely have to increase that. We also have executive health and annuals. We want ladies to do their mammograms. We want Jamaican men to go out and do their PSA to check their prostate, do their prostate checks. And we want to make sure that we're screening for diseases so that we don't treat advanced disease. So that has to be financed. A lot of that is not going to be financed in the hospital. So there are opportunities and investments that we can make with the different folks in the financial sector, with the government, separate and apart from public funding, to say, okay, should you and I be investing in our own prostate tests? Sure, we can buy insurance, but are there opportunities, therefore, where we can say, okay, since we want to screen and you can't get it at the hospital, can we develop a model where workers go in and get their screening like in other countries? In some countries, they do an endoscopy for their stomach because stomach cancer is high. Can we organize our annuals so that you go and take care of your colonoscopy to make sure you don't have colorectal cancer? But also on the other side of it, can we invest in technologies, purchase those technologies, have the patients have their tests, and use those payments to pay back for that technology, and therefore the system becomes sustainable rather than us believing that there is free healthcare when somebody actually has to pay for it.
How much of the thinking is about, I'm going to call it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, preventative care rather than care once the situation has already gotten to a point where it becomes extremely expensive to treat with?
Well, you sound like the MBA. That's straight finance. Because it's going to be cheaper for us to screen you and treat you early if you have breast cancer and it doesn't spread to the brain or it doesn't spread to the spine, and then we have to be doing a large brain operation or a spinal operation. It's going to be cheaper if you screen early. Then, therefore, if you prevent colorectal cancer, if you prevent prostate cancer, if you prevent breast cancer, then what happens, we don't get those advanced cases at the university hospital when, as we say in our language, this cancer has spread already. And so you're also going to save costs because it's easier and less expensive on the preventative side than on the therapeutic, the treatment side. And so we now know that we have to be involved in prevention, no matter what specialist you are anywhere in the world. I think everyone recognizes now that all of us have to be involved in prevention in as much as we want to have the best technologies when you have a problem to treat it.
There's been a push recently. I've seen it from the Ministry of Health, for example, the Know Your Numbers campaign. Do you believe, Doc, that the messages are getting through to the segments of the population that they need to be getting through? Are you seeing that there's a decrease, for example, in, let's say, the diseases that you have to treat, which you, as you said, you'd rather prevent than have to treat? Are you seeing any declines?
So what we know is that we are now seeing an improved awareness, for example, in people who are doing their mammograms. And I think more Jamaican men are now acceptable of prostate screening.
Is that right?
Both in terms of their blood tests and in terms of their visiting their urologist, having their digital rectal examination that they used to be afraid of, or having an MRI of the prostate. So I think people are more aware, but the problem is that I don't think that we have gotten deep enough into the culture of the population because we're still seeing a lot of advanced disease. When we last looked at the numbers, only about 10 to 12% of women are having their mammogram who are eligible.
Is that a cost thing, though? Is that the prohibitive factor?
I don't know. There's a mammogram now at Cornwall Regional, at KPH, at the University Hospital, as well as in the private sector. So there are more machines available. So clearly we have to analyze it some more because it's not only cost, because in these areas it's less expensive to do them. So I think we may have to take it on the road, take it to
into
the
communities.
And yes, and at our radiology meeting at the RSNA in Chicago this year, everything is now in a truck. So you may get a truck drive up with a PET scan, and a mammogram, an ultrasound, etc. And believe it or not, they might park it in the plaza. And so you get to where people are. And as a result of getting to where people are, you will increase screening and awareness. So I think we have to think outside of the box to try and get those numbers up. But I think the Knowing Your Numbers campaign has really helped us in the hospital by allowing patients to know what's happening and get treated before you need to be hospitalized.
You say think outside of the box. Sometimes professionals are set in their ways, and new innovations can be, let's say, intimidating sometimes, or they may not warm to them as quickly as they need to. You talk about the pace at which the technology is changing. Do you find that your colleagues are keeping a pace? Are they open to the innovations and the changes in medical technology?
I think the adoption in medicine is like everywhere else. There are the early adopters, there are those who push back. And I do get pushback as the chief of staff. But I think when people look at what has happened, and maybe that's one of the things that the pandemic helped us with, when people look at the overall global health of the population and then they look at their own personal health, I believe they're now realizing that, look, yes, I used to practice this way. Yes, I used to be comfortable with this way. I used to write in my docket and I used to hold up my x-ray to the light. Now, Carl is saying, no, you need to go on your computer and look at it on the screen and you need to enter the patient data. So if Dr. in Westmoreland need a result, you get the same blood result. You don't have to repeat it. So I think we're getting there. But yes, we have some pushback, but we have a lot of early adopters who are driving these changes and helping patients.
Listeners, much more to come from this, the 23rd Annual Caribbean Neurological Association's Neurosciences Symposium and Workshop. We're coming to you live from the Eclipse Great House at the Half Moon Resort in Montego Bay. Dr. Bruce, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and thanks to the listeners.
Not a problem. We're going to take the break and come back.
you can have it all. Company events, birthday parties, or the wedding of your dreams. It's all possible at Grand Palladium Hotels and Resorts. We have magnificent event rooms and a dedicated team that will make your event the best experience that only Grand Palladium Hotels and Resorts can offer. Contact us at 876-619-0000 or call your favorite travel agency and ask about our promotion designed especially for you.
Good morning and welcome to the newest addition to the Nationwide News Network family on Hot 102.
Good afternoon, I'm Erica Allen.
I'm Elizabeth Bennett.
In Nationwide News at this hour.
This is Nationwide. I'm Cliff Hughes.
And I'm Carol Narcisse.
Morning, welcome to This Morning on Hot 102.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Beverly and it's Manley. Good morning and welcome.
For 20 years, Nationwide 90 FM has been your trusted source for breaking news, delivering critical updates when you needed them most. 3:37 in the afternoon, we interrupt to bring you more from the Wandon Klansman gang trial. Another guilty verdict. With fearless, fact-based journalism that unearthed the truth.
Between 2012 and 2018, nearly $5.5 million was taken from the track legend.
And insightful commentary that sparked meaningful conversations and shifted perspectives.
Welcome to the front page. I'm Emily Crooks. I am Naomi Francis. We're pleased to be joined by Roger Clark.
From the stories that shook Jamaica,
We're having an earthquake.
to those that inspired change and left lasting impacts.
In 2014, to be dealing with an issue such as the Mario Dean case.
Nationwide 90 FM has been there, diving deep into the issues that matter most to you. As we mark 20 years of dedicated service in 2025, we honor the trust you have placed in us and reaffirm our commitment to serving you, the Jamaican people, rooted in truth, fairness, and integrity. We continue to provide incisive reporting with a foundation of accountability and respect. While we celebrate our journey, we are also focused on the future, fueled by the same passion and purpose that has always driven us. Thank you for supporting Team Revolution for 2 decades. Stay with us. The best is yet to come.
Start your fitness journey today and make 2025 your healthiest yet with Express Fitness. State-of-the-art equipment, expert trainers, and encouraging community are here to support you every step of the way. Join now and take the first step towards a stronger, happier you. Express Fitness, starting at only $9,500 per month with 11 locations island-wide. Your gym for all your needs. Visit www.expressfitnessja.com to sign up today.
Enough power tool, big to small. Jack and my figure dig the wall. Our Total Tools. Lead back a figure trim the lawn. We have everything a job demand. Total Tools. We rent them, sell them and fix them. Also give Total Tools a call. When I say home improvement, landscape construction, a Total Tools are your option. Home improvement, landscape construction, Total Tools are your option.
Total Tools, located at 102 Main Street, Ocho Rios, 34 Slive Road, Kingston.
And lot C6 Jacksaw, St. Anne's Bay. Call us today.
Thank you so much for staying with us here on Nationwide at 5. Still coming to you live from the Rose Hall, the Half Moon Hotel here in Montego Bay for the 23rd Caribbean Neurosciences Symposium. I have with me now the chair of the Department of Neurological Surgery, Professor of Medicine at the University of North Carolina, Professor Nelson Oyesheku. Oyesheku. Thank you. And of course, he's no stranger to you listeners, Jamaica's Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton. Dr. Tufton, I want to start with you because...
But don't ask me any neurological
No, man. Broad overviews, Doc. Because neurosurgeons, how are we in terms of Jamaica's capacity in terms of neurosurgeons?
We are doing a lot better than we were, let's say, 10 years ago.
Mm.
I think there may be about 12 or somewhere in that region. Dr. Bruce can confirm, and a few in training. But the truth is that the science around brain function, spinal function, and so on is necessary and needed because, for starters, we're a high trauma society. The traffic accidents, the domestic disputes, and et cetera, requires a lot of that kind of support. And then beyond that, if you just look at the general health profile of the population, and I spoke today at the opening, the need to prevent as opposed to just cure. So outside of the operating theater, how do you integrate a conversation around how to protect, preserve, enhance those functions at the primary level as part of the lifestyle approach is very absent. And I challenge the experts in the room that we have to do more by integrating, not just focusing on the specialization when it's needed to cure a particular problem. So yeah, we need more, but it's improving.
Yeah, and on that point of needing more, so I know, for example, you have the Barry Wint Scholarship to build out your capacity in terms of health professionals. Is neurosurgery one of the areas that you're looking at?
Yeah, we have done a needs assessment on all the areas. This is one such, and the scholarship come next year, which is the second year, will focus heavily on where the gaps are. So some people will be disappointed because they want to apply for something that we have a lot of people already in the system and they're not likely to get, even though they maybe deserve it. The gaps is where we plan to focus on, and this is one such area.
And Professor, let me ask you about the training of neurosurgeons. How involved is that process?
It's a lifelong commitment, really, to not just training, but continuous improvement, learning, and that sort of thing. If you start from medical school, the average time a neurosurgeon spends in training is about 7 to 10 years after medical school. So you've got to be committed to spend that much time. And then when you get done, there's always continuous improvement because there are new devices. Our knowledge of the specialties is forever expanding. So you have to go to workshops and courses and symposia like this to continuously improve and keep up with what's going on, not just in your neighborhood, but across the broad expanse of neuroscience and neurosurgery. So that's the commitment one has to make to become a top flight neurosurgeon and stay that way.
And is that, in your estimation, let's say different or unique from any other area of medicine?
No, I mean, as you rightly insinuated, medicine is a commitment to continuous learning. It doesn't matter if you're a nephrologist or a cardiologist or a neurologist. That commitment to continuous improvement and staying abreast of techniques and discovery is inherent in medicine, for sure.
And Dr. Tufton, when I imagine when the ordinary Jamaican hears that, boy, there's a neurological problem, they think, my God, this is going to be expensive, particularly those who might live in rural areas. Talk us a little bit about what the government is doing to ensure that these services and the technologies that we're hearing from the professionals are accessible to as many Jamaicans as possible.
Yeah, good question. So a big part of the build-out of health services is to provide greater opportunities for these kind of procedures at the very highest point to be performed. So UWI is the pinnacle of that process. They are the tertiary level institution. Cornwall Regional also. The new Cornwall Regional plus the adolescent hospital will have 12,
right here in Montego Bay.
In Montego Bay, we'll have 12 brand new operating theaters, for example. And they'll come with all the gadgets and all the supporting structures to support that kind of work. Other works too, but that kind of work. So the build-out, Spanish Town, same thing. We're going to do St. Anne's Bay, Maypen. So the infrastructure to facilitate that work is being put in place, and it's not a promise anymore. It's a commitment, and it's being built out. The training through Barry Wint, as we have said earlier, is going to allow more people involved to be able to perform the process. But critically, this is why this conference is important, the bringing together of other jurisdictions, like Prof. Nelson here, who is at Chapel Hill, North Carolina, to use the technology which we are implementing through health information systems where remote consultations can take place. So you not only build capacity through training, you access services through that kind of connectivity. It kind of closes the loop on ensuring that we explore all possibilities to provide the support that is necessary.
And Professor Nelson, the kind of collaboration that the minister talks about, in your estimation, talk to our listeners about how important that is.
Yeah, it's absolutely critical. This exchange of ideas and learning, reciprocal learning, by we sending trainees to Jamaica sending trainees back to us. That mutual reinforcement of learning and exchange of ideas is critical in the development of your specialists. Nobody has the monopoly on knowledge, as I'm sure, and various institutions and various countries are at different stages and have different strengths. And disease, incidence of disease varies from one area to the other, where, there's the stroke belt, for example, where there's a high incidence of strokes and so forth. And then the other areas where trauma is a big factor. So it makes sense that exchange, if you're interested in those particular areas, is best met by making those kinds of conversations alive and bringing.
Interesting point around stroke, which I should have mentioned. We have about 7,500 strokes per year, certainly over the last few years. 2,500 of those perish. Unfortunately, the rest of them need support.
Sure.
And this discipline is absolutely critical, supported by medication, of course. So the need is definitely there, and it's for us to put the infrastructure and to provide the people and to allow for the collaboration.
Professor Nelson made a point just now, and I want to highlight it because I think a lot of times, Minister, or people believe that our own capacity here in Jamaica is poor. And when Professor Nelson says the learning happens because there are areas that we here might be stronger in, it's so important to highlight that so that our people understand that the development that we're seeing is not just infrastructure development, but we have capable professionals who are going to actually staff those hospitals once done.
The truth is that our professionals have always been very capable and exceptional indeed, to the extent, the manifestations of that is the extent to which they are demanded globally. There's hardly a hospital in the U.S. where a Jamaican doesn't work, and in many cases, multiples of them, nurses and so on. So I think what needs to happen is the supporting infrastructure for the most part. But there's another very important point which captures the theme of today, which is the leadership and the management. Because I am of the view that oftentimes it's not just about the resources, it's about how we manage the resources. And leadership in public health or in health generally has to pivot to find the new opportunities and the new ways to collaborate. And I am happy that the theme today included the role of leadership and technology, because the two go hand in hand, and we have to embrace that as a big part of the way forward.
Listeners, important conversations happening at this symposium, the 23rd Caribbean Neurosciences Symposium. Much more conversations to come. Professor Nelson.
It's been a pleasure.
Minister Tufton.
All the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take the break and come back with more.
Are you equipped to protect your organization from financial crime? The University of the Commonwealth Caribbean, in partnership with the Anti-Money Laundering and Financial Crimes Institute, is offering internationally recognized certifications in anti-money laundering, improved compliance with certifications in FCPA, fraud risk management, countering the financing of terrorism, and more. Visit www.ucc.edu.jm or call 876-906-3214 for more information.
Yeah, here? If you're tired of a cluttered office space, then you need to call Corporate Interiors International. We offer top quality industrial shelving, filing cabinets, and storage cabinets to keep your workspace organized and efficient. Plus comfortable office chairs that will keep your team productive and focused. Visit us today at corporateinteriorsjm.com or call us at 876-630-0010 for more information. Corporate Interiors International. We sell solutions, not just furniture.
Coming to you live from the Eclipse Great House, the Half Moon Resort in Rose Hall, Montego Bay, for the Caribbean Neurological Association's 23rd Annual Neurosciences Symposium and Workshop. The theme of the symposium, Global Health, Technology and Leadership in Healthcare. We've heard so far from some of the professionals. We've also heard from the Minister of Health and Wellness. We're now going to hear from the Senior Vice President of Sales and Services at Berita Investments, Dave Dixon. Good evening, sir.
How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing well. Welcome to Nationwide at 5. First of all, what's Berita doing here?
Oh, of course. Why shouldn't we be here? So Berita is here as title sponsors for this event because, we feel that being the powerhouse of financial institution that we are for such an event like this, it's just fitting. All these professionals come together to enhance each other's and sharpen it iron. And what better financial partner to have than Berita Investments, where we offer a wider range of financial services tailored to both personal and businesses. And the services that the medical professionals here are offering, they're not cheap. And I'm sure some of the persons here are have their own practices, they need financing, they also need their personal affairs to be looked after. And what better person to partner with than Berita Investments?
Talk to me about some of the benefits of some of the long-term investment opportunities that Berita has available.
So we have access to a wide range of long-term, medium-term, and short-term fixed income opportunities for individuals who are looking to diversify their portfolio and to benefit from this higher interest rate environment. One of the things that one would look at now is the interest rates currently are much higher than they were before, even though they are coming down. And if you depend on interest income to support your living expenses or other expenses, it's important to look at your portfolio at this time and position yourself to take as long as you can to benefit from these rates. Because just a few years ago, the BOJ rates were below 1%. Now, they went up as high as 7, they're going back down, they're at 6 now. Eventually, they're going to go back down because, as conditions improve, the rates are going to go down. Now, you want to secure your investment returns to be ahead of inflation as best as possible. And we have a wide range of, privately arranged securities that can, you can benefit from that. And we have access to other corporates and sovereign debts that are of varying tenures that you could buy now because the rate environment is high. You will continue to benefit from that higher stream of income for a much longer period if you position yourself now.
My listeners, some of them, yes, high-end clients that, professionals who will be able to take advantage of the long-term investment strategies, but some of them might be listening and thinking, boy, I wonder if Berita has anything for me. I'm not a doctor, not a professor, I'm not attending a neurosciences symposium. What does Berita have for me?
Well, we have a lot for you because a lot of the persons that walk through our door or call our phones on a daily basis, they're not doctors and they're lawyers, and they're the average Jamaican who is much more aware of the benefits of investing through the efforts of Berita over the several years. We're really invested in our client education, and if you look at our page, we really put a lot of
your social media is strong for sure.
So those persons come to us every day with their small amounts, and we do guide them accordingly. Because if you don't have the minimum to go in some of these private placements or accredited investor securities, we have pool funds where you benefit from somebody professionally managing those funds for you, where your return is almost as good as the man who has a large amount to invest, or even better in some cases, to invest in specific securities. So the advice is always available without any cost.
And available and accessible in a way that the let's say, uninitiated can understand what they're getting involved in?
Anyone walks through our door or call our phone, we will get a warm reception and we will explain stuff to you. And we will guide you accordingly.
Yeah.
And we will help you create that future that you want.
Right. Earlier you talked about the high interest rate environment and what the opportunities it makes available. Talk to us a little bit more about that.
Okay. So it depends on who you talk to. So if for somebody borrowing, the high interest rate is not necessarily the thing that they want to hear about.
Right.
But to the person who is looking to maximize the return on their investment, they want to benefit from the highest rate possible now. The reason why we're looking at the rates now and why it's important, the cycle of interest rate environment is going in the opposite direction, meaning that we expect that the rates will continue to decline in the next 12 to 18 months, to 24 months, below where they are now. The reason why we're emphasizing it, there are instruments with longer tenure than that cycle where you can access now and you will continue. So when rates do come down, which they are going to come down, you will still benefit from those if you lock in from now. So the opportunities are there now. So by the time you get to that point, you are already securing a higher return on your investment earlier.
And Burrito will make it happen.
And we will make it happen for you.
How do potential clients reach out to Burrito?
Well, you can, we have a very full-service website where you can access all of our information and start your investment journey there. You can actually complete the full application online. You can contact us, and we will definitely, be able to give you all of the requirements that you will need. Most persons, you need your ID, your TRN, proof of income, proof of address, and the funds to start, and
off to the races.
Off to the races.
Dave Dixon, Senior Vice President, Sales and Services at Burrito Investments. Contact them, no? And make the money work for you. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dave Dixon. We're going to take a break. Come back with more.
Good morning and welcome to the newest addition to the Nationwide News Network family on Hot 102.
Good afternoon, I'm Erica Allen.
I'm Elizabeth Bennett.
In Nationwide News at this hour.
This is Nationwide. I'm Cliff Hughes.
And I'm Carol Narcisse.
Morning, welcome to This Morning on Hot 102.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Beverly Anderson Manley. Good morning and welcome.
For 20 years, Nationwide 90 FM has been your trusted source for breaking news, delivering critical updates when you needed them most. 3:37 in the afternoon, we interrupt to bring you more from the Wandon Klansman gang tribe. Another guilty verdict. With fearless, fact-based journalism that unearthed the truth.
Between 2012 and 2018, nearly $5.5 million was taken from the track legend.
And insightful commentary that sparked meaningful conversations and shifted perspectives.
Welcome to the front page. I'm Emily Crooks. I am Naomi Francis. We're pleased to be joined by Roger Clark.
From the stories that shook Jamaica,
we're having an earthquake,
to those that inspired change and left lasting impacts.
In 2014, to be dealing with an issue such as the Mario Dean case.
Nationwide 90 FM has been there, diving deep into the issues that matter most to you. As we mark 20 years of dedicated service in 2025, we honor the trust you have placed in us and reaffirm our commitment to serving you, the Jamaican people, rooted in truth, fairness, and integrity. We continue to provide incisive reporting with a foundation of accountability and respect. While we celebrate our journey, we are also focused on the future, fueled by the same passion and purpose that has always driven us. Thank
you. All right, so we're coming to you from the 23rd Caribbean Neurosciences Symposium. They are about to get underway with the panel discussion. The moderators, Dr. David Walcott and Dr. Carl Bruce. I'm going to take you now to the panel discussion.
That's great. And before Burrito, David would have been in several of the country's most prominent financial institutions and some of the leading companies in the region, and he will tell you more about that. Also with us is Adrian Stokes from Qantas, who is no stranger to this area of health financing. And shortly we'll ask each speaker to give your opening statement, and so they will update you. You would have met today most of the members. Nelson Oyesheko, he's our distinguished professor from North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and he was previously at Emory when he would have visited with us here at Cairns, and would have been one of the external examiners for the University of the West Indies. He's the outgoing president of the World Federation of Neurological Surgeons and has a wealth of experience in different continents, and will bring that experience to us tonight. And last but by no means least, the Honorable Dr. Christopher Tufton, our Minister of Health and Wellness, who you heard from today also. You will agree with me, everyone, that this is a very distinguished panel, and we look forward to exploring health financing. So let's, in the usual manner, welcome everyone. So I'm going to hand over to David to kickstart this. David, if you could just tell us briefly before we introduce our panel, a little bit about yourself and about this area, and then we'll get started.
Thanks, Carl. And again, I appreciate the space to host this dialogue with you. David Walcott, as Dr. Bruce said, I lead the infection prevention and control initiatives at the UHWI, as well as run a healthcare investment platform called Novamed. And I think this conversation is very timely because the challenges that we face are pressing given aging population, etc., and rising healthcare costs. And I think you'll get some insight into how those challenges are financed by way of this panel. So kicking it off from me, because Dr. Bruce and myself are really stewards of this conversation, handing over to you, Jason, to give a brief introduction to our esteemed audience.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Dr. Bruce, for inviting me here this evening. It's a pleasure to be here with you. As Dr. Bruce had said, I'm Jason Chambers, Chief Investment Officer of the Cornerstone Group. The Cornerstone Group is an integrated investment holding company. We are the parent company of Barita Investments, which is probably a name you would readily recognize, and I believe is the title sponsor of this event. We are committed to ensuring that our investments have a great social impact here in Jamaica and the region. And with that in mind, it is really significant and relevant that we're here this evening to participate in this chat with respect to transforming financing of the health care sector. It's something that we certainly hold dear to our strategic initiatives as a group, and we'd love to share some ideas we have with respect to how to move forward in this regard.
Thank you very much, Jason. So to my immediate right, as I said, Professor Nelson Oyesheko, who has been traveling the world as our distinguished president of the World Federation of Neurological Surgeons, but it comes with a wealth of experience. He's the chairman of the program now at North Carolina on Chapel Hill. Welcome to Jamaica again, Nelson. This is not your typical neurosurgery topic, but if you could just introduce yourself, and then we'll get back to the health financing.
Thank you, Carl, and good evening, everyone. And it's a great pleasure once again to be here at the Cairns with my dear friends in the Caribbean and neuroscientists, neurologists, and neurosurgeons. It's, as Carl intimated, this has been many years that I've been granted the opportunity to visit, and it has been an endless joy with the interactions and the friendships made over the years. As Carl noted, I'm at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. I've been there for the last 3.5 years. I spent my career previous to that at Emory University in Atlanta, where I also did my neurosurgical and neuroscience training there and rose through the faculty ranks and so on. In the last 2 years, I've been in the position of the president of the World Federation of Neurosurgical Societies that embodies about 50,000 neurosurgeons worldwide. It's a federation of societies, both national, continental, and otherwise. And pertinent to that experience for this topic this evening is the fact that global surgery has taken on a very important pride of place. Previously, we were more concerned with global medicine, global health in the context of the primary specialties. But what has become increasingly clear is that surgery as a specialty is an important part of global health, and it must be an integral part of all healthcare systems, and it cannot be viewed as too expensive, too intensive, too bothersome, unnecessary. It is just as necessary as having clean water and proper vitamins and so forth. And so global health it must incorporate surgery, and surgery includes general surgery, all the surgical specialties, anesthesiology, obstetrics, and gynecology. And healthcare systems that do not incorporate surgery and its disciplines are threatened because if they're not prepared for the challenges of surgical problems in their populations, then they're going to fail as healthcare systems. And so they must be prepared. And this all came out from, as many of you know, the Lancet Commission's findings on global surgery some years back, and basically challenged governments and healthcare systems and so forth to meet the demands of surgery in their populations. And this must be factored in. It's just as important as vaccines. It's just as important as taking folic acid to prevent tubal defects. It's just as important as wearing a helmet when you ride a bike. And if you do not provide surgical services, it's a failing of the system. So I think that's a very important message from the surgical side. And it challenges our policymakers, our economists, healthcare ministers to find ways of underwriting. How do we underwrite the delivery of global surgery? So I know, pardon the lengthy introduction to the subject matter, but I thought I would at least make the most salient point I could.
No, thank you very much, Professor. And it's very important because many view surgery has been expensive, and therefore we have to finance it. But as you said, surgery is necessary and a vital part of the healthcare ecosystem. So before we go to the minister to lay the groundwork tonight, I introduced before Dr. Adrian Stokes. Adrian, I know you have an interest in this area, but I would just like you to introduce yourself to our audience before we get into the conversation.
Thanks, Carl. Good evening, everyone. As Carl indicated, my name is Adrian Stokes. I am the CEO of Qantas Capital. We are a non-traditional investment management business. Our major objective is to use innovative strategies to connect capital to underserved areas like healthcare. We've recently started a business where our major focus there is to fund medical equipment, critical medical equipment that are needed not just in Jamaica but across the Caribbean. At Qantas, we believe that there is an indelible link, a significant positive correlation between healthcare, a thriving healthcare sector, and economic growth. With a healthy population, the labor force obviously increases, it stays more productive, and there are significant positive spillovers for our business. So it's not just to generate returns for our investors, but we believe that there is a significant symbiotic relationship between a sustainable healthcare sector and what we do in the private sector. At Qantas, we also believe that the private sector will play a significant role in providing the capital to fund a sustainable healthcare, I don't want to say industry, but sector, not just in Jamaica, but across the Caribbean. And I look forward to discussing some of these ideas as the conversation unfolds. Back to you, Carl.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Dr. Stokes. We really appreciate that. As you know, we're a regional university, and we're in several different countries across the Caribbean. And so, you know, I'm sure many of the visiting surgeons and doctors here from the other Caribbean countries, including Trinidad and Tobago, Martinique, Puerto Rico, are interested in this. Well, Minister, you need no introduction, so we're going to kick off the deeper discussion on health financing with you this evening. You would have produced what I call a fascicle or a paper. I know you're academic, and had a presentation in the Parliament on healthcare financing. We have here tonight doctors, you have bankers, you have, you know, healthcare platforms. You know, this is a difficult area, but it's one that's important to the population. So we'd ask you to kick off this evening about what your initial thoughts are and what you've published from the ministry and where we're going to go with health financing. Welcome again, Minister.
Thank you very much, Bruce. And I want to say hello to the very distinguished members at the head of the room and those in the audience. I've rarely been a part of such significant capacity. And as the only politician in the room, I feel very inferior to everybody else. How is that? But I hope to our visiting friends, you're having fun. That's the objective while you work, and we appreciate your visit and your support. So let me lay the foundation for the others to chime in on as it relates to financing healthcare and using Jamaica clearly as a case model. So I became minister in 2016. Next month will be my 9th year. Our budget in 2016 for healthcare was about 60 billion Jamaican dollars. This past May or March, when the budget was tabled, the budget for health was 140 billion Jamaican dollars. So 155 to 1 for those who think in US dollars. Significant increase. I give you another piece of statistics which shows the need for review and reform. The National Health Fund
So you're hearing the panel discussion, and we were hearing from the Minister of Health and Wellness. There is a slight break in sound. They're trying to sort that out. Dr. Carl Bruce moderating. You also heard from Dr. Adrian Stokes. This is the 23rd Annual Neurosciences Symposium and Workshop, coming to you from the Half Moon Resort in Rose Hall, Montego Bay in St. James. Beautiful, beautiful property. And I don't think I've ever seen so many doctors in one place. Dr. Tufton, of course, talking about health financing, the national healthcare budget, and how much the government of Jamaica spends on healthcare. Earlier, when we spoke to Dr. Bruce, also Professor Nelson out of the United States, they were talking about the importance of ensuring that financing keeps pace with the kind of advancements that we see in neuroscience and how important that field of medicine is to Jamaica in particular. Of course, you know, we have high incidence, high rates of trauma, the road traffic situation, the crashes that we see. The hospitals have to deal with that. Strokes, Dr. Tufton also spoke to. And so That's why they're putting on this symposium to better understand these issues and the way forward to ensure that our country is at the very cutting edge, the very forefront of the advancements. The title sponsor here this evening, Barita Investments. This the 23rd Annual Neurosciences Symposium and Workshop. Still trying to wait for them to sort out the sound, so let's go to the break. Come back with more.
Sunday, February 16, 2025 will be pure energy and excitement as thousands hit the streets, running, walking and wheeling with a purpose. The Sagicor Sigma Run isn't just a road race, it's a celebration of people coming together to make a difference. Don't miss the Caribbean's biggest running event, Sagicor Sigma Run 2025. Visit SagicorSigmaRun.com and register now. Run for the fun, donate for the cause. Sponsored by Walden, Pan Jam, National Baking Company, Reggae Marathon, Catherine's Peak, Malay Media and Whistling Frog.
If you owe the NWC for more than 2 years, your aged debt may qualify for a 30%, 35%, 40%, or even up to 50% discounts, depending on its age and other special circumstances. Visit nwcjamaica.com for further information. Don't delay. Let's hear from you today. Dial 888-225-5692 or 888-CALL NWC. Get your share from the NWC's bucket full of goodies, serving you in so many ways.
Effective February 1, 2025, our live weekend news will only be aired at 5 p.m. on Saturdays and Sundays. Stay tuned to our website and social media pages for timely updates on news of the day.
Good morning and welcome to the newest addition to the Nationwide News Network family on Hot 102.
Good afternoon, I'm Erica Allen.
I'm Elizabeth Bennett. In Nationwide News at this hour.
This is Nationwide. I'm Cliff Hughes.
And I'm Carol Narcisse.
Morning, welcome to This Morning on Hot 102.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Beverly Anderson Manley. Good morning and welcome.
For 20 years, Nationwide 90 FM has been your trusted source for breaking news, delivering critical updates when you needed them most. 3:37 in the afternoon, we interrupt to bring you more from the One Don Klansman gang trial. Another guilty verdict. With fearless, fact-based journalism that unearthed the truth.
Between 2012 and 2018, nearly $5.5 million was taken from the track legend.
And insightful commentary that sparked meaningful conversations and shifted perspectives.
Welcome to the front page. I'm Emily Crooks. I am Naomi Francis. We're pleased to be joined by Roger Clark.
From the stories that shook Jamaica,
we're having an earthquake,
to those that inspired change and left lasting.
Welcome back to the 23rd Annual Neurosciences Symposium and Workshop being held at the Eclipse Great House at the Half Moon Resort in Rose Hall, Montego Bay. Let's take you back to the panel discussion.
I say that to say that if you are going to respond to the needs of the population, whether it is hospital services, beds, operating theaters, doctors or nurses or otherwise, or drugs, or diagnostic equipment, what we're witnessing, and we've seen it over the last period of time, is that the chart is going in one direction. Costs are increasing, and increasing at a rate where taxpayers are going to have a difficulty affording it. We have a free healthcare system, and we subscribe to the universal access to health, which is promulgated at the levels of the United Nations through WHO and so on. The quality of that access becomes very compromised if we do not find a way to afford for those who can't afford it. So the discussion around financing healthcare is extremely relevant. The need for innovation in financing healthcare, for technology, for sharing of service provision across borders, as we are discussing here, is critical. And I close by saying the need for a national health insurance scheme of some kind, a subscriber scheme, where we apply a principle of those who can afford to pay should pay more, or a pooling of resources to allow for the universal access of a particular quality is fundamental. And 2 years ago, I tabled a paper in the Parliament, which Bruce may be referring to have a conversation around that. We're now running some numbers internally, which I hope to discuss further at the national level. And I think the next phase of the development of the National Health Fund is to morph it into some sort of national health insurance program as part of the sustainability model over time. Otherwise, it's going to be just unaffordable. So I stop there. I just wanted to lay the context, and I leave that to you now, Chairman.
So thanks, Minister. And you made a very important point, which is the healthcare costs are rising, and the inflation that we're seeing that is driving greater budgets in the public sector is also affecting the private sector. And if we look at the next 2 decades, the percentage of individuals over 60 will double, and a lot of that will be felt by the public and the private sector. And so I have the fortune of having the 2 private sector folks to my left, and I'll start with you, Adrian. How does the private sector respond to this burgeoning healthcare rise?
So there's no silver bullet solution here. I think what we're looking at is a hybrid system. So the minister indicated that we have started that journey with the NHF. What needs to happen is to expand the NHF. The question that arises is, how do you fund that expansion? So importantly, the first thing that needs to happen is you need to turn the NHF into a trust with governance rules clearly laid out so that it can be managed in a sustainable way. In terms of funding, there are 2 what I would call low-hanging fruits. You could look at the NHT. There are 2 funding sources currently. So if you look at the NHT currently contributes about 11, 12, sometimes 13 billion to the Consol Fund for general budgetary support. Jamaica's fiscal accounts is getting to a point where that support will no longer be needed, perhaps another year or 2. There's no reason why that funding can't be channeled into a trust-like situation with the expanded NHF. And that's about 12, 13 billion dollars as I indicated, right? The other source of funding, and this is a little bit controversial, but I think you can sell it politically. NHT refunds that occurs like a 7-year gap, right? This year, that will amount to about 10 billion Jamaican dollars. There's no reason why that can't be allocated to an expanded NHT. In a way, what you're trying to find are ways to fund this expanded NHF, or to fund this national insurance scheme, or to say it more elegantly, to create a public option that doesn't require significant increase in taxation. So you're looking at existing sources and the redirection of those existing pockets of savings that we have in the country. Those 2 sources will perhaps add about $25 billion, and it will grow over time. So that will give you the basis to have an expanded NHF, but as I indicated, you have to do it in the form of a trust that is properly governed and is managed in a sustainable way, so that you begin to get investment income, reflows, and so on that can be reinvested in this expanded NHF. Now, so that's the public bit. And obviously, about 20% of the population,
would be covered by private insurance. So they are okay, right? The problem that you're trying to solve, is those persons who don't have private insurance, right? In combination with this creation of a national insurance scheme, you would need to crowd in private capital. Now, what are practical ways to do that? Now, there's no good reason for a government to own the physical plant and equipment. There's absolutely no good reason for that. So buildings, infrastructure that are currently owned by the government, those things can be sold and leased back. That unlock capital that the government can utilize, right, in long-term sale and lease back situations, right? So that's the first thing that you would do. And obviously it will be maintained by the private operators and so on, right? So the equipment, and in fact, the ministry is doing a dumbed-down version of that in terms of the diagnostic equipment, right? There's absolutely no reason why that cannot be expanded to the physical infrastructure, right? So the other bit includes solutions like what my company, Qantas Capital, provides in terms of looking at niche areas in the public sector where we can allocate capital to. So what I've outlined is really, as I indicated, a way to expand the NHF without increasing the tax burden, and also finding ways to incorporate private capital into the system, so that we can have, at least, an expanded, healthcare system where many Jamaicans can now have quality healthcare.
So good point, Adrian, and you made a good point that I'd like Jason to touch on, which is, the assumption embedded in channeling private capital into these models is that the capital will perform, right? And the end activity has to be productive activity. How is it that we adjudicate the risk that drives allocating capital into these various entities, and B, ensure that the capital is deployed responsibly to drive returns?
That's really the crux of what we're discussing offline, because at the end of the day, in order to mobilize private capital, then the risk-adjusted return needs to make sense. But in answering that question, I just want to take a little bit of a step back. The issues we are facing as it relates to financing our healthcare are not at all unique to Jamaica. These issues exist the world over, even in developed areas of the world. And it's in that regard the IMF in December 2024 stated that based on the period we're now entering, and that's bearing in mind in part the political themes which we are seeing going forward, where there's going to be more of a closed approach to providing donor funding and aid funding. So we can't be hoping and praying for donor or aid funding here. What the IMF urged in December 2024 is to utilize to the maximum domestic sources of private capital, so we're on the right track here. Now, the Milken Institute would have done a study of various countries in Africa with the same challenges that we have had, and they have found ways to ameliorate in a significant way, and in some cases transform their healthcare sector and healthcare infrastructure. And what they have done is to set up effective public-private partnerships. And the framework for that follows quite closely what we did with our economic oversight program here in Jamaica with a cross-functional private-public sector set of persons coming together with a common objective, bipartisan common objective, aimed at really transforming something that has been an albatross for us for decades, for generations, and we have seen the benefit of that. It's the same kind of model we need here. We need a capital market task force with capital market experts combined with a public bodies champion and persons who are steeped in the regulatory space to put together the right framework to move forward to bring private capital to the healthcare sector. Now, to just go more specifically to your question, Adrian has hit on a point that I think makes sense. There are various elements of healthcare that need additional funding. There's need for increased staff. There's need for increased facilities, increased equipment. The infrastructure side of it is probably the most seamless side of it to finance with private capital to begin with. And I believe what can happen, Adrian mentioned the sale and leaseback as one potential way of moving forward there. But we also have ways where we can set up ring-fenced special purpose vehicles, which has these infrastructure assets as the underlying collateral or investment that private capital is investing in. Now, the government is spending a particular amount per year. The minister mentioned $140 billion per year. What is happening globally is that private healthcare providers are coming into countries. This has happened in Africa, it has happened in Fiji, it has happened in Bangladesh, and they are saying to the government, you're spending $140 billion per year to get this particular outcome in the healthcare sector. I'm going to come in and cut that cost for you to $90 billion, for example, and I'm going to give you, at a very minimum, the same outcome plus a particular margin above that. And that difference between the 90 and the 140 becomes the return opportunity for private capital. I know I've been speaking for a while, so let me wrap up quickly. In the last 18 months, I've visited Saudi Arabia with the Cornerstone team, and we have met, there's a doctor there that has one of the most modern hospital facilities I've seen. Well, it's the most modern I've ever seen, right there in the middle of Riyadh. And what he has done is he bought that from the government and he has privatized it. And he has said he is prepared, and the Saudis would have visited with us shortly after, and he said that he's keen to engage with the government to do that same structure I just mentioned. And if we're able to show that there's that committed spend from a government that is credible, the government now has stable, sustainable fiscal dynamics. And so that will attract private capital to the extent that spend, that fractional spend relative to what is being spent now is committed and will continue over the long term, then private capital will be attracted to it, even as the government is effectively cutting in a material way what it has been spending on its own and yielding even greater benefits. I mean, there's a whole lot more to be worked out in terms of the details, and that's why a capital market task force or working group, which is analogous to what we did with EPOC, needs to be put in place to translate the talk that we're now having into action.
Yeah, but Jason, just to follow up on that before I go to Nelson, we would have seen in Britain, I think they call it PFI, Private Financing Initiatives, before, and that would have been some time ago. So what is it that is preventing us from taking that step? We would visit, for example, the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Birmingham, which was completely built by the private investors for the government to provide health care. So what are the things that would prevent us from taking that step if we know that it can work? Why has it not translated? It's back to Jason. What are the factors that the financial people would be uncomfortable with that would prevent you from putting capital into such a model?
I think it's several factors, and one of them I was discussing with David offline when the mics went earlier, and it is the private sector understanding the risk, right? If I don't understand the risk, I can't price it. And so that education is important. Now, you're not going to get disparate persons in the private sector figuring this out on their own. And so the capital markets task force or transformation body that I mentioned, we can call it whatever we want, but I'm saying it's going to be analogous to EPOC. Public education and educating the private sector, those who hold private capital, will be important. Beyond that, though, structuring the opportunity in a way where it's very clear that this is the committed flows or returns that you stand to get from making this investment, which is something that can be readily done if properly structured. The University of the West Indies has done this by getting close to energy independence, setting up an SPV and buying energy directly from that SPV with private persons owning the capital in that SPV. The Barita team has recently done Boundbrook, which is a total modernization of a section of Portland, by putting that investment, that development in an SPV. Barita is the largest equity holder with other partners, and the government is in as a partner as well, providing roughly, I think, a third of the financing, with private capital providing close to 2/3 to 70% of it, because there's a ring fencing of the flows and there's committed offtake from the development that private capital can rely on. So that's going to be important as well to do the proper structuring of the flows so that the risk can be properly contained. Before I hand to Adrian, there also needs to be fit-for-purpose regulations as it relates to the capital market. What I'm seeing is regulators almost, just blindly seeking to implement policies and regulations that exist in developed countries without stopping for a moment to say, how do I balance implementing global standards here with national development objectives? We have, what has happened in Canada and Australia are instructive. They have done pension fund reform to ensure that their pension funds can invest significantly in the infrastructure development that was mission critical for the country over the long term. And their pension funds really seeded that infrastructure transformation, and they have even taken it beyond their borders. So fit-for-purpose regulations are important, and so there would need to be some changes as it relates to regulation, because regulation determines how investment managers can deploy capital and what type of securities they can deploy that capital in. Right now, the pension fund regulations here are archaic in Jamaica, and that's the pension funds are the single largest pool of private capital available in our country. Adrian, you can remember of the figure. I think it's getting close to $1 trillion Jamaican dollars now in pension fund assets in aggregate. Those pension funds are restricted by very archaic regulations, old man rule type regulations that are not fit for purpose even 50 years ago, much less today. So there has to be a 360-degree approach to how to translate all of this talk into structured and sustainable action. I'll pause there.
Adrian?
Thanks, Jason. Quite comprehensive. And I just want to support a point Jason made. So there's nothing particularly difficult or sophisticated about building a building and leasing it. The private sector does that all the time. What's needed in addition to what Jason said, as it relates to some of the regulations that target private capital, those need to be reformed. But government policy is critical here. Absolutely critical. Just want to put the minister on the spot a little bit. The government recently put out a tender for diagnostic equipment. And we have persons who will bid and will provide that solution. It's pretty routine. Nothing particularly sophisticated about it. But it required government to have the foresight that, hey, here's an option. Here's a solution for us. Similarly, if the government wanted an option as it relates to providing physical infrastructure, the plant, for example, the hospital, right? Somebody to build the hospital and lease it to the government. As long as the rate is, provides that critical risk-adjusted return, private capital will give you that solution. So it requires a policy framework, and which is why I started off when I talked about funding healthcare. I said it's a hybrid, and let me unpack that a little bit. So the private sector provides, health insurance for our employees, right? You have a thriving private market, and it works well, right? So my employees, they have insurance and so on and so forth. Cornerstone employees, and it works. The issue we're having is with the public option. And a lot of what we're discussing here today is around the public option for insurance. The 80% of the population that's not covered. How do we provide coverage in a sustainable way? And there are several pillars to provide that solution. And I spoke about them. One, you need an enabling environment, fit for purpose regulation. There are pockets of capital that are tied up by government policy. Those capital are that pocket of capital can be unlocked with enlightened policy changes. The other bit that you can do, and we spoke about it just now, these things relate to again government policy that reallocates pockets of capital. I talked about the NHT. There are capital, we have funding going from the NHT to various uses in the economy, right? These can be reallocated at the appropriate time to provide a robust solution for a public option for national insurance, national health insurance.
Thanks a lot, Adrian. Let me just ask the minister to respond before I come back to Nelson. And we have a couple of people in the audience I'd like to get
I hope
involved.
there's someone capturing the narrative, because I've gotten so much advice listening to the two gentlemen that I'm going to have to refresh myself. But a lot I agree with, except that some of the assumptions one has to be careful of. For starters, the 20% of the population that is insured privately depends a lot on the public system also. You would be surprised. In fact, up to this week, I was tending to a cancer patient who received a fraction of what is required for their treatment, and therefore was applying to the Compassionate Fund and to our institution. So the model in the private space is imperfect, and for a number of reasons which I won't go into. The issues around risk and return is the pivotal point that has to be explored, which is why government is always suspicious of a total private sector takeover. Because as you know, governments respond to people, people respond at the ballot box. And there is a challenge that we have to overcome as a hurdle, even with the willingness to pursue it. The two extremes poses particular challenges, because let's face it, if you look at the US and their healthcare system and apply the principle of universal access, there's no such thing as universal access in the US, which is primarily driven by the private capital. In fact, the US is the worst model to pursue. It is the most expensive healthcare service provision, and it's all driven by private capital. And if you go to the other extreme, the UK, Just Google and you see the long lines and the 12-hour waits at accident and emergency. So I subscribe to the hybrid principle. I think there's a lot of value to be had in the public-private space. Part of the challenge in countries like Jamaica is just we just do not possess the capacity to work through that. And I mean capacity at the level of private and public. And I believe Jason alluded to that earlier, that the pricing of that becomes a challenge. So take the leasing, which we have advertised. First time ever done, or attempting to be done. We had to pull it back after one attempt because the proposals that were received based on the assessment seem to have not met the criteria. We then reached out to some of our multilateral partners to try to get them to give us some of the institutional knowledge that they have to help us to restructure. We're trying to do that now. But I think it's something we need to pursue in a public-private partnership way. And it would be a great start to advance the financing in a way that utilizes participation and expertise that we don't currently have in this system, as long as we can get the pricing and the return model accurately. There are other opportunities. There's an oncology and nephrology public-private center of excellence that we're trying to develop, which is going through the parliament, the legislative process at the St. Joseph's Hospital, which means getting private capital to invest in that. There are others which we want to pursue, like the maintenance of buildings that we have, if not a total sale and lease back, but the maintenance function, which we believe has significant opportunities where the public system really doesn't have the capacity to do. Most of those expertise reside in the private space. And I could go on and on. And I do believe there's opportunities for the outsourcing of building and leasing, which Adrian mentioned. So I think there are some ready examples for exploring a coming together of private and public capital. I do believe, though, that there may still be a dominant role, or at least a role for government from an oversight perspective to avoid the breach of the commitment and the fiduciary responsibility around universal access. And that's a very fundamental part of the conversation that I think is going to be important. But persons like myself and this government are very willing to do that because we're doing it in other areas. And I think it's something that we need to pursue. There was another point I wanted to raise, which I don't remember offhand, so I'm going to hand the mic over. And then when I come back, I'll make the point.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot for that, Minister. I was just going to change gears a little and ask Nelson. You've traveled the world on behalf of organized medicine, and you have seen different systems. You've gone into country where you have to pay an entry fee or insurance in order to go there, and they use these in some way to help the health system. Explain some of these models to us and how they help countries as they move forward.
Well, just a couple of comments. Different countries are endowed differently in terms of resources. There are some countries that, they're so endowed they couldn't spend all the money they had if they were drunken sailors, and they have these sovereign wealth funds that, you wonder how they're going to ever get done spending it. And then there are other countries that are just resource cursed. They have nothing. Not that they spent it, but they just don't have it. And so have to come up with innovative ways of drumming up money to fund certain things. Insurance is a great thing. It works only if everybody does it, or at least as many people as possible do it. It also helps if you have a heterogeneous population, so people are drawing from it at different ages and through different, segments and strata of the population. It doesn't work so well if you're all homogeneous and you're all 50 years old, because you all claim at the same time and you'll all fund it at the same time. And I was traveling about 4 or 5 months ago for WFNS meeting, and it was very interesting. You know, you go to different countries, and there are different travel requirements, and everybody is familiar with the fact that most countries require you to have a visa when you go in. And many countries, I think Jamaica included, if I'm not mistaken, because I came in 2 days ago, and all I had to do was fill out my C5 form. I didn't have to pay a dime to anybody to come in. But I was traveling a few months ago. I think I told Carl this a couple of days ago. And they charged me a visa to go in. It was $90. I was only going to be there 3 days, but it was $90 US dollars. The country in question was not a US dollar spending country. It's not their currency, but that's what they charge, and that to be paid in United States dollars. And I've had to pay visas before going in. When I was leaving, 3 days later, I was asked to pay another visa fee with a government stamp. It wasn't some scam. There was a customs official, and was asked to pay another visa fee to leave the country for $50. So round trip going in and out was $140. And it was the first time that it ever happened to me. But they raise money, and you can imagine, I'm not to tell you what to do, but you can imagine, I think Jamaica, 4 million tourists a year. If you charge round trip $100, that's not bad money. And it probably goes to fund, things like premiums for insurance. But any number, I use that as an example, not because this is something that's a panacea, but finding a resourceful means of raising funds to address the very needs that we're talking about. So, an interesting anecdote, if nothing else.
If I may, I agree. At the risk of getting a backlash from the tourism industry, it's more a rule than an exception in many countries, in places like Europe, where people have to pay a room tax or a head tax, which goes directly to health. Problem is that tourism currently collects a tax which goes to the TEF, which is used for another purpose. But I do believe, and I throw Adrian's suggestion around the NHD. Maybe he's listening to my private conversations about the next move, because that's kind of part of a conversation, very unofficially, around how do we shift existing resources based on where the greatest needs are as part of pooling funds to support the establishment of a national insurance scheme, based on the principles that you have advocated, Prof. But there are other potential sources which I do believe. I mean, tourism, again, is possibly controversial because the tourism interest is very strong, and they're going to support making it the easiest possible way for tourists to visit Jamaica. But it is a reality that we cannot ignore, that the more tourists that come, and we welcome them, we appreciate them, they're important to us, is the more wear and tear we place on everything from the environment to our health hospitals and so on. And indeed, we have been cited in a recent travel advisory around not being able to provide health services adequately by the United States, which tells me that there may be need for some sort of adjustment where some of those resources are directed to supporting the millions that come here in their own interests. Not just in the interest of Jamaicans, but in the interest of those who visit our shores. Those are difficult conversations, but I think they are necessary conversations given the unsustainability of our trajectory now in terms of financing healthcare. So it's something that I think any government, this one or any other, needs to engage in, and it's good that at this level, the private sector and others are helping to stimulate that kind of discussion.
Thanks a lot, Minister. I just want to quickly introduce our distinguished professor from Toronto, Professor Michael Phalens. You've been doing a lot of infrastructure development at Bathurst and then at the Danforth in Toronto. It's not the first time you're building out your hospital at the Toronto Western. What is the Canadian system like? How is it financed? And how do you do some of the infrastructure projects that you take on to include cancer care and diagnostics, etc.? I wonder if you could give us a Canadian perspective on this, Professor Phalens.
Thank you, Carl. Well, I've really been enjoying the discussion, and congratulate you and your colleagues for bringing together this diverse group and to have a discussion. And I think the concepts of looking at equitable partnerships between the public sector and the private sector, it's an intelligent conversation. Having said that, the execution of that is not always easy, to maintain the principles of universality, to avoid the challenges of having a two-tiered system that has that has some of those issues. And we kind of struggle with those issues as well in Canada, which is a well-resourced country. So currently, in the Canadian context, we have a universal healthcare system where every individual in the country has access to healthcare. There is a private sector, but the private sector is limited to areas that, for one reason or another, have been deemed less essential. Those areas may be somewhat controversial, but drugs, interestingly, are largely private. There is some public funding of drugs. Dental care is largely private, and outpatient physical therapy, rehabilitation is private. So there is a substantial amount that is privately covered. All of neurosurgical care is publicly funded. So there is no private, if you will, option for neurosurgical care. One of the concepts, though, that every country kind of interprets the concepts of universal care a bit differently. The Canadian system was originally modeled after the NHS system in a lot of regards. The NHS, in many ways, sort of is, has been kind of the architect. But as was indicated by the minister, unfortunately, the NHS has fallen onto hard times, which is difficult, I think, for all of us to see. Okay, so what do we do in Canada? So firstly, we don't have any magic solutions either, so I'm not here to tell you how to do things at all. We also struggle with a lot of the issues that you are discussing, although we're well resourced. But one of the things that you may find interesting is that the hospitals are privately owned. Okay, so for example, we're now building a new surgical tower, and 50% of the funds are coming from private sources, largely philanthropy, and then there's matching of funds, and so that, to a large extent, has been kind of part of that system. And then also there have been some private-public partnerships, chiefly in the areas of rehabilitation. And our hospital system owns 17 rehabilitation hospitals, and they make a lot of money for the system, and they're private. And those bring funding in to areas where it's a bit more challenged to bring in money, including in areas such as neurosurgery, which are very resource intensive. But there are a lot of discussions going on now in the Canadian system as well around examining other elements of the private-public partnership. So one of the realities, and in the Canadian system is that the way costs have been controlled is by having wait lists. And what used to be acceptable, say what was acceptable to my parents, is less acceptable for people of my generation. But like our children, people that are in social media and TikTok and all of this, they don't want to wait. And now people do not want to wait in the Canadian healthcare system. It's causing a lot of strain. And the government is starting to respond to this by trying to incentivize hospitals from a financial perspective in rewarding hospital systems that are more efficient. So trying, in a sense, to have a private sector mentality to try to drive the efficiency. But I applaud the discussion that's been going on. I think it's a very intelligent discussion. I think as a principle, I think looking at private public cooperation is interesting. And I thought the comment that was made around the buildings themselves is actually to some extent reflected by what's going on in the Canadian system. Maybe a little bit different than what you've been describing, but they're privately held. So I work in a publicly funded hospital, but it is not owned by the province of Ontario. It is not owned by the university. It is a private entity. People may not realize that. Okay.
Thank you very much for that, Prof. And David, if you could just allow me one more comment. Kester, you've been working with health systems in St. Lucia and Grenada and other small island states. I know the producers want to keep me very limited, but could you give me a brief comment on what models are there and what are the ideas that you're using in these markets?
I think you're on. Yeah.
Thank you. So we've been involved.
You want to use this one? Yeah. Okay.
We've been involved in advising the Bahamas government. We actually was part of the implementation of the British Virgin Islands. Did some work in Grenada, and we currently.
Kester, you don't mind introducing yourself
for
a minute?
Sorry. Yeah.
You say we.
Yeah. Okay, I'm Kester Nett. I'm actually a neurologist. I'm the CEO of a company named JIPA Network. And we're an association of healthcare providers in the Caribbean, Latin America, and the U.S. And we developed a kind of private-public model of finding ways to consolidate the access to healthcare by introducing a kind of a buying model where you could bundle healthcare services and purchase it at lower costs and provide accessibility. So I learned a little bit about that model because I was trained in a model that's public and private. University of Miami being a private institution and Jackson Memorial being a public institution, and seeing how private and public models work. So in the Caribbean, just because of the experience of looking at the challenges of access, what we've seen is that the challenge in the Caribbean is that we don't have a sustainable way of paying for healthcare. And partly because we are a siloed healthcare delivery system. Minister, you pointed that out. So in a siloed healthcare system, you segment it. So you have the private sector, the public sector. So the dollars are not consolidated. So there's enough money in the Caribbean, to be honest with you, to pay for healthcare. But because we are not together, I mean, if you think about it, you look at the homes people have, everybody has insurance on their home or their car. Some people even buy burial insurance. So why can't we afford health insurance? But because it's not consolidated, and when we worked in Grenada, for example, Grenadian government spend about $115 million in healthcare. But we found $340 million in the economy for healthcare. But we can't figure out where all that money goes. But we could find some of the entities that pay. We're finding the same thing in St. Lucia. So the first thing you have to do is to find where the money is. and then figure out how to distribute. So we came up from our experience of dealing with all of the other Caribbean islands with a model that allows you to spread the risk and the cost of healthcare across the entire population. Because the problem of paying for healthcare is that a few people are paying for high costs, and catastrophic care is what's driving the cost of healthcare. Catastrophic and complex care. That's most expensive, and it's really eating the lunch of primary healthcare. So we came up with a model, we call it SPARC, Stratified Pool Risk Coverage. And what we did, instead of segmenting the payment system, we designed it where the government has the first layer to pay up to a certain dollar amount, that's maximum. And then private insurance or people in the commercial sector would pay over that. So you achieve universality at the first layer so that everyone gets access, whether you're in a private system or public system. And for those who have health insurance, they'll pick up from a certain dollar amount. The good thing about this model, it allows you on top to have a reinsurance in a third layer that actually helps you with catastrophic care. And we designed a model where we give tax incentive to the companies and the organizations that pay for health insurance. So rather than going out and having a tax, you would allow those persons a tax incentive. So the other part to this, you have to set up an independent body outside of the government, like a statutory body, to operate something like that, because it's very difficult for a government to manage the payment of health care. So we feel that that's part of the initiative that would need to happen for that to occur. Thanks.
Thanks, David.
Well, I think you made two very important points that are natural bottlenecks of the problem set. One being making care more efficient by way of bundling care, etc., and two, by finding ways to preserve universality while incentivizing high quality care. And you know, the one thing I'd like to just double click on as we wrap up is that financing healthcare is an extremely complex problem. And the reason why it's difficult to finance, the reason why it's difficult to drive returns on capital invested is because there is an expertise gap that limits our ability to make decisions intelligently about how capital is allocated and how it's deployed and how it's returned, right? And so I think that's a big part of the solution. Minister himself has a very difficult task because he has to serve two masters in the sense of preserving universality, but driving efficiency in a healthcare system.
You've been listening to a panel discussion here at the 23rd Caribbean Neurosciences Symposium. Yeah, it's been going on since Monday, actually. It comes to a close tomorrow, but that's all the time we have for Nationwide at 5. So special thanks to our technical engineer here on location, Jermaine Compass, branding assistant Sheldon Richards, the technical operator, the man in studio, you know him well, the pilot, Andrew Glenn Anderson, our sales supervisor, Joan Shervington, our videographer, Jamal Tucker, the producer, Dana Davey. Thank you so much. The news and production team led by Cara Powell and George Davis. The sponsors of this event, the Caribbean Neurological Association and Burrito Investments Limited. I'm Ricardo Brooks. Good evening.
Good morning and welcome to the newest edition